Chapter 378, Celestial Decay. Seeing how they were flying through the air, Jian-Chen couldn't help but feel excited. The power of flight was something he would soon be able to achieve. Since he was able to control the elements in the world with his mind, flying would not be a problem for him. He just hadn't discovered the trick yet. Given some time and experimentation, then he would be able to attain flight just like the Heaven Saint Masters. Slowly closing his eyes, Jian-Chen began to feel for the wind elements surrounding him and began to figure out the trick to flying and to increase the speed. Flying seemed simple, but there were many significant details to be learned first. It required constant practice in order to excel at it. Otherwise, if a beginner student were to try to fly 100 meters in the air and was hit by a sudden gust of wind, he would be unable to control his flight. The speed they were flying at was extremely fast. It didn't take long for Jian-Chen and the man to return to the valley. It was noon by now and smoke could be seen spiraling up from the village. At least 5 men could be seen scurrying around the village in preparation. The middle-aged man didn't bother to hide their entrance and pulled both Jian-Chen and the carcass of the Blood Wolf King to the center of the village before slowing down. "Hey, Xiaomi has returned. Xiaomi has brought back another large magical beast. Ha, it seems that the village won't be able to finish this much meat. With such a large wolf, who knows just how long it'll take. Xiaomi always brings back such a fearsome beast for the village. He has always done the greatest contributions for the sake of our village." As everyone began to show up, they all looked toward Fatty's father with looks of undisguised worship and admiration. There was no shock at all from seeing the two fly back, it was almost as if it was a regular sight. The father let out a laughing smile before replying back to everyone enthusiastically. There was no hint of arrogance normally seen in a Heaven Saint Master and just kindness instead. "Xiaomi, you are too amazing. It doesn't take much thought to know that this wolf was extremely strong, but you killed it easily." One of the men laughed. The man shook his head. "Everyone misunderstands, this magical beast wasn't Dash." As the middle-aged man spoke, Jian-Chen cut in abruptly, "Uncle, let's hurry up and divide up the Blood Wolf King. The fresher it is, the better it will taste." Fatty's father laughed. Fine, De Zhuang, go and find some of the more able-bodied men to skin the carcass and divide up the meat." "You got it." The man responded enthusiastically before gathering up the men. "Whoa, Dad, you brought back another big magical beast." A cordial voice could be heard from behind as a muddy Fatty could be seen walking with a hoe in hand. He must have returned from tilling the fields with his grandfather. Without any further explanation, the father took Jian-Chen back to eat a meal after greeting everyone. The meal had been cooked by Fatty's mother. She looked no older than 30 years old and was spectacular in appearance. There was the grand air of a noble about her, and despite the common clothing she was wearing, it did nothing to hide her mannerisms. It didn't take more than a single look to figure out that she wasn't raised from the village. Sitting at the table with the family of 4, Jian-Chen began to eat. The meal was rather simple and consisted of vegetables they grew themselves. The grandfather of Fatty gave a deep look to Jian-Chen before smiling. "Youngster, come to the cornfields with me for a while later. There's a plot of land that requires cultivating." "Grandfather, Jian-Chen only just healed. Why would you make him do manual labor?" "Wait for Dad and I to finish planting the cabbages, we'll help you then." There was a complaint to be heard from Fatty, showing that he was clearly dissatisfied from his grandfather asking Jian-Chen to do some farming. Upon hearing the grandfather's request for him to help till the fields, Jian-Chen was stunned for a moment. Then a relieved look took over his face. "Fine. But I've never farmed before, so if there is anything I don't understand, I hope that senior will give me pointers." Jian-Chen knew that the grandfather was a hidden expert that was living in seclusion for some unknown reason. Jian-Chen wouldn't squander a chance to talk to the grandfather for any reason. "No need to call me senior, my family name is Xiao. As the village elder, you may call me Elder Xiao or Uncle Xiao." The grandfather spoke with a kind voice. After the meal, Jian-Chen followed Elder Xiao out toward the cornfields with a hoe on the top of his shoulder. When Jian Chen looked at the hoe on his shoulder, he couldn't help but force out a smile. Could it be that with your noble status, you feel that this hoe is degrading your status? The grandfather's face had already lost the kindly expression he had back in the village. Right now, he was expressionless. It would appear that the kindly expression would only appear within the village. Elder Xiu, you misunderstand. That was not my thought at all. This is my very first time farming with a hoe before, so it is a new sensation. Jian Chen tried to explain. And, then that's fine. No matter how strong you are or how high your status is, you must never throw away your conscience. A man's conscience is extremely important. One must be kind and benevolent in order to attain the highest level of mastery. Take heed to this. Even if you are a genius without equal and have only success after success, in the end, your achievements will amount to nothing. The elder spoke. This junior will remember these words. Jian Chen spoke modestly. Elder Xiu continued to walk toward the field with the hoe in hand. I know that your heart doesn't truly understand the meaning of my words. But you must know, all those within the continent who have reached the Saint Ruler realm have always decided to shun the world. It is very rare that they roam the outside world. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes as he thought about the words. This junior has always thought that those who have reached such a level have practically detached themselves from the secular world and all of the worldly enticements. That is why they do not appear in the outside world often, but hearing Elder Xiu's words, is that the true reason? Correct, the situation isn't as you thought. For all those who have reached the Saint Ruler realm, they have already comprehended the existence of the profound mysteries of the world. At the same time of gaining such a strength, they also feel the restrictions of the world. The restrictions of the world? Jian Chen was extremely curious now. This was the very first time he had heard of such a matter relating to a saint ruler. Correct, the restrictions of the world. After reaching the realm of the saint ruler, they will receive the punishment of the celestial decay. The celestial decay is a terrifying matter that has never been broken free from. It's a rule that is specifically directed toward those saint rulers who have violated any of the laws. Elder Xiu's face grew somber as he talked, an indicator of just how terrifying the celestial decay was. Elder Xiu, just what is this celestial decay? Is it truly that terrifying? Jian Chen was curious. He had never heard of such a thing before, so it was hard to not be curious. The celestial decay is a law of the world that transcends time itself. It is able to eliminate or discipline those at the saint ruler level or higher. There are 5 different stages to the celestial decay. The hair becomes as dry as hay, the body withers away, the blood within the body evaporates, the inner organs begin to burn, and finally the soul itself dies out. By this point, the body and soul are truly extinguished. Within the Tian Yuan continent, no matter how strong of an ability one has, if they commit a great sin, they will not be able to escape the punishment of the celestial decay. Thus, the celestial decay is a rule that regulates even saint rulers to prevent them from committing any sins. Then what is considered to be committing a great sin? Jian Chen asked. At that moment, the 2 men had reached the fields. Swinging his hoe down to till the earth, Elder Xiu began to speak. The exact details are unknown, but after many years, those who have violated the rules of the world spoke of their experiences. From this, we gathered that a saint ruler who slaughters countless innocents or one who commits an act of injuring the heavens will undoubtedly receive the punishment of the celestial decay. Other than that, we are still not sure what else violates the rules. The celestial decay is a law of the world that regulates saint rulers and higher from committing any sins. But it has never appeared within a saint ruler that has secluded himself from the world. The reason why is because of one thing, conscience. Conscience? Jian Chen asked. Correct, it is conscience. The world of mortals is a large vat. If one is pure and honest, then they will dye the human world with color. To lose your conscience is to be weak-willed and give in to the temptations of money and power. If a saint ruler wishes to progress in improvement, they must continue to try and comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. One's attitude toward the profound mysteries of the world must be calm and be able to withstand any of the worldly temptations. Once the soul is as close to the world as possible, that is when the comprehension of the profound mysteries of the world come even faster. If one is swayed by the worldly temptations, then they would be stuck in a game like Go. No matter where you go and no matter how much you try to harmonize with the world, it will be impossible to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. If one cannot regain their conscience, then there can be no progress. Elder Xiu dug his hoe into the ground again and again as he spoke to Jian Chen. Hearing this, Jian Chen had no words to say. He continued to think about the words Elder Xiu had said. His words had brought about a great revelation for Jian Chen. Truly, listening to the words of a wise man was superior than to studying books for 10 years. A saint ruler's way of cultivation was not like the regular way of cultivating saint forced to improve themselves. They walked a different path by trying to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. Youngster, I can tell that you are not a fish meant for the pond, you will have a grand future. Despite the loss of your saint weapon, it has done nothing to impact your future growth. I only wish for you to grab hold of your conscience and to not be lost in the mortal world. Break away from the world and cultivate to the very peak. Elder Xiu stared at Jian Chen with a heavy gaze. Chapter 379, Flying Through the Air. Elder Xiu, thank you for your guidance, this junior will definitely remember these words. Jian Chen spoke with an apprehensive feeling in his heart. Separating from the mortal world was easier said than done, he was barely 20 years old with many things left to do such as revenge. He had not yet felt enough of the warmth from life with his family, so there was no way for him to break away from the mortal world just yet, unlike the elders who had already done so. To a 20-year-old youth like Jian Chen, breaking away from the mortal world was impossible. And, as long as you remember my words. I know you cannot hope to achieve such a step right now, but you must take heed to never lose your conscience. Do not be deceived by hatred, greed, or power. Elder Xiu continued to speak while brandishing the hoe at the ground. This junior understands. Jian Chen was like a modest student who was listening intently to his teacher. As the elder tilled the ground, he suddenly stopped to turn back to Jian Chen. Youngster, would it be possible for you to show me your current strength to satisfy my curiosity? I already know of your battle with the Blood Wolf King, but your ability is something that I have never seen before in my entire life. Jian Chen couldn't help but feel shocked, he hadn't thought that his every single move and action had been monitored by Elder Xiu. But then, thinking back to just how strong Elder Xiu was, Jian Chen felt relieved. This junior has only just received this power, so I do not fully understand it just yet. If Elder Xiu has any pointers to give, then please. With that, Jian Chen's eyes began to flash brightly. With a single thought, the ground beneath them began to float up into the air from the power of some mysterious force. Then, an azure and violet glow began to appear before flying straight toward Elder Xiu without any hesitation. But then, before the clods of mud could even get within a meter of Elder Xiu, they suddenly stopped midair. Elder Xiu's eyes contained surprise as he muttered, "This is truly a queer ability. I can only sense an azure and purple ray of light with a strong amount of power within the mud. This power is something I've never seen or heard before. Just what is this?" The elder hadn't made a single move, but he had somehow managed to bring the floating dirt back down to the ground without any of the azure or violet light left in it. Jian Chen was overwhelmed with shock. Elder Xiu's strength had been at such a level that Jian Chen couldn't even begin to comprehend it. With a single action, Jian Chen had been left dumbstruck. Jian Chen's eyes began to flash with a bizarre azure color in one eye, and a bizarre violet color in the other. Some of the weeds and dirt on the ground began to rise up once more and transform into a single streak that wrapped around the elder with the two glows. The elder smiled faintly, "Youngster, this ability of yours is quite extraordinary. Although the saint rulers who were able to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world can control items with their thoughts, they did not have this azure and violet color to it. This azure and violet glow, however, can constitute as a powerful threat to only heaven's saint masters. If you tried it against someone like me, then it would not be enough. Elder Xiao spoke as the attack around him disappeared and dirt fell back to the ground. Jian Chen was stunned, but he wasn't giving up just yet. With a flash of azure and violet in his eyes, sword qi began to gather in his right hand before forming a meter-long sword. This was the origin energy of the sword spirits. With a flash of violet, Jian Chen's sword qi struck out at Elder Xiao. Elder Xiao seemed to have stopped right in front of the attack. Looking at the origin energy radiating from the sword qi, he began to mutter, "What a strong amount of sword intent, this aura, it seems like." In the next moment, the elder became engrossed in his own thoughts. Just as the origin energy coming from Jian Chen's sword qi got within a meter of Elder Xiao, an unknown energy suddenly prevented it from moving forward. This energy was so strong, even the origin energy of the sword qi had no chance. Losing color in his face, Jian Chen hadn't thought that the elder's strength would be that strong. Even with the origin energy, he had still been unable to get close to the elder. It was like he was an infant compared to Elder Xiao. Even as he stood there, Jian Chen was unable to do a single iota of damage. When Jian Chen had used his mind to feel around the elder's body, he immediately sensed that the elder was like a piece of the world itself. The origin energy of the sword spirits had been blocked by this worldly energy. Against such a boundless source of energy, Jian Chen felt like a tiny boat in a giant ocean. With a deep breath, he began to absorb the origin energy from the sword spirits back into his body. What surprised Jian Chen the most was that Elder Xiao's strength had already reached a level he could only dream to reach. Elder Xiao stared at Jian Chen's right hand with an unnaturally serious expression before asking, "Youngster, would you be able to tell me? What was that energy in your hand, where did it come from?" "I call it the azure and violet sword qi, a type of origin energy." Jian Chen spoke without revealing much. "Azure and violet sword qi, origin energy, so that person was you after all." Elder Xiao muttered to himself. "What was that, Elder Xiao?" Jian Chen asked in confusion. "It's nothing." "Youngster, are you able to use that energy at will?" Elder Xiao stared at Jian Chen with rapt attention. Jian Chen nodded his head, "As of right now, I can use it freely." "Elder Xiao, is something wrong?" "It's nothing, I only feel that this energy is not at its peak state yet." The elder replied. "The origin energy is very weak, so it hasn't reached an optimal state yet." Jian Chen replied with a half-truth. "So that's it." The elder suddenly came to a realization. "Youngster, right now you are primarily focused on using your thoughts to attack. In regards to your cultivation path, you will have to continuously practice with your mind. Right now you can easily control tiny objects without a problem, but if you wish to push a giant mountain with just your mind alone, this will not be an accomplishable task. Aside from strengthening your thoughts, you must also comprehend the profound mysteries of the world. Although your strange origin energy is extremely strong, it is still an energy of the world. The profound mysteries of the world are the way of the king, since they are capable of allowing you to control the energy of the world. I thank Elder Xiao for his guidance, this junior will do as senior says." For the rest of the afternoon, Jian Chen and the elder both continued to till the cornfields. After learning many things in regards to the profound mysteries of the world from Elder Xiao, Jian Chen had begun to ask even more questions. Elder Xiao did his best to answer any questions he had, allowing Jian Chen to benefit greatly from his insight and added to his current understanding. On the second day, Elder Xiao didn't call Jian Chen to the fields. Jian Chen still had his own things he needed to do, so he took the initiative to tell Fatty that he would be heading out by himself. Looking at a patch of grass, Jian Chen started to feel for the world energy. As the energy began to fly around his body, Jian Chen felt a slight breeze. Jian Chen hadn't made any movements and stood as still as a statue. The fierce wind began to pick up and his clothes began to flap from the gusts of wind. 2 hours later, the winds around Jian Chen's body had grown even stronger. Finally, his entire body began to slowly lift into the air by increments of 3 inches without stopping. Like earlier, Jian Chen kept his eyes shut as he continued to feel for the wind element around his entire body. His spirit was completely immersed in the thought of making him fly. To be able to fly through the air was an ability that Jian Chen had coveted. And today was the day he would finally grab hold of it. His heart was already incapable of describing the joy he was feeling at this current moment. Bang! Suddenly, Jian Chen's head struck against the tree in front of him. Straight away, his entire body lost balance and began to fall from the air. Opening his eyes after the ordeal, he climbed up from the ground. It was a good thing his body was different than a regular person's body, otherwise, he would have broken several bones without the usage of Saint Force to protect his body. It seems that the power of flight isn't something to play around with. I must cultivate even more. Jian Chen sighed. Afterward, Jian Chen relentlessly practiced the power of flight. He continued to float 10 meters above the ground for 6 hours before he finally managed to piece together his experiences and go for an even higher height. Flying straight up for another 100 meters without stopping, he could only see wisps of cyan light flow around him. This was the wind element. At this moment, a villager suddenly spotted Jian Chen floating 100 meters up in the air. With his mouth dropped wide open, he began to point at Jian Chen with a quivering lip, he's, but he was completely unable to finish his sentence in his shock. Elder Wang, what are you stammering around for? Did you forget how to talk? The villager to his side laughed at him before looking in the direction the villager was pointing. Straight away, he too gasped in shock as he cried, "Good gods, isn't that the youth Xiaomi brought back? How is he able to fly like Xiaomi? Could he be a heaven saint master as well?" The sight of Jian Chen 100 meters up into the air was an extremely eye-catching sight. Such an event didn't take long for everyone to witness. Each villager could only look on in utter disbelief. Oh my god, Jian Chen could fly. Is he a heaven saint master? God, this is unbelievable. Even the little fatty who was working the fields had noticed Jian Chen and instantly cried out in shock. All of a sudden, a strong gust of wind blew across the concentrating figure of Jian Chen, forcing his body to shake back and forth. Unable to keep control, Jian Chen began to plummet down to the ground. With a change in expression, Jian Chen began to collect his thoughts once more before drawing the wind elements close to him. At the same time, a cyan-colored figure could be seen flying straight for Jian Chen a good distance away. It was little fatty's father, Xiaomi, who had seen the predicament Jian Chen was in and came by quickly to help. Chapter 380, Leaving Longevity Valley. Jian Chen's figure continued to free fall down toward the ground. Now that he had lost his Saint Force, a fall 100 meters up in the air would inflict fatal wounds if it didn't kill him outright. Unafraid of the threat of death, Jian Chen began to use his mind to control the wind elements in the world once more. In an experiment to regain control, he was finally able to break his fall just as he reached 50 meters above ground and thus avoiding danger. Letting out a deep breath as he shook off any lingering fear, he began to think. The power of flight seemed almost infinite, but it was not something to be played around with. If one's control wasn't flawless, then they would be risking their life. Xiaomi flew toward Jian Chen before smiling at him. "Youngster, are you fine?" "Yes, I'm fine." Jian Chen spoke with a slight amount of panic still in his heart. Xiaomi began to laugh. "Youngster, if you're not that proficient with the ability to fly, then it would be best to not fly so high. In the case that you begin to fall from 100 meters, or even 1,000 meters, even a heaven saint master would not be able to escape with light injuries." Xiaomi began to impart his experiences with Jian Chen before explaining several tricks to Jian Chen. Then, he left to go back to the fields. After experiencing such an event, Jian Chen didn't dare fly too high and instead remained only 10 meters above the ground. For the next 3 days, Jian Chen spent the majority of his time practicing his ability to fly. It was fortunate that his ability to perceive was strong. It would normally take a person a month or 2 to be able to grasp the concept of being able to fly. In just a measly 3 days, he completely understood how to fly. Right now, Jian Chen's ability to fly was as strong as his ability to walk on solid ground. He had absolutely no difficulties at all, and if he were to be blown by a fierce gale 1,000 meters up in the air, he would feel nothing. He was as steady as a house without an iota of balance lost to the wind or even a risk of him plummeting to the ground. Even Xiao Mi could only exclaim in astonishment at the sight of Jian Chen mastering the ability to fly in 3 days. Applauding, he remarked that when he became a Heaven Saint Master, he had squandered 2 months on learning to fly. Today, Jian Chen was eating a meal with the rest of the family. Although Xiao Mi and Elder Xiao no longer needed to eat, they had become used to eating 3 meals a day and continued to live like regular people. At the table, Jian Chen looked at the family and spoke, "Little fatty, Aunt Xiao, Uncle Xiao Mi, Elder Xiao, I plan to leave Longevity Valley for a few days and bring back several of my things." Upon hearing that Jian Chen was planning to head out to the outside world, an indescribable sheen could be seen in Fatty's eyes. After looking at his grandfather, the sheen disappeared. With an envious look, he spoke, "Jian Chen, come back soon. You promised to help me build a new house, don't forget." Laughing, Jian Chen said, "Don't worry, little fatty. I've already promised you that I will. Wait for me to bring back my things. I'll definitely help you build a new house." Jian Chen, Longevity Valley has at least 1,000 kilometers to travel to get to the outside world. Furthermore, the road is filled with dangerous magical beasts, you'd best be careful. The father, Xiao Mi, said with concern. Taking a bite out of the steamed bun in his hands, he spoke with a slightly muffled voice, "Don't worry, Uncle Xiao Mi. I'll definitely be careful." The grandfather hadn't spoken a word and continued to eat his morning meal in silence. After the meal and a goodbye, Jian Chen flew into the air and took off in the direction indicated by Xiao Mi. It was the way to leave the valley. Jian Chen was flying 500 meters above the ground, only to feel the wind blow past his ears and under his legs. Right now, he was feeling a feeling he had never felt before, but he knew it made him happy. Flying through the air and running on the ground were 2 separate matters. Although he wasn't as fast as when he used the Heaven's Stolen Fortune and Illusionary Flash, he still traveled at a decent pace. His speed with the wind elements aiding him was slower than the 3rd elder of the Sure family, but he was barely expending any effort to move. With his strong mind, he could control a small amount of the wind to help him fly through the air without consuming much energy. This was the very first time that Jian Chen was flying through the air with his own power, so there was a feeling of fresh wonder. On the way, he continued to look all around him while appreciating the view. At that moment, a black cloud suddenly flew toward Jian Chen a small distance away. When Jian Chen saw the black cloud headed toward him, his eyes took on a sharp glare as he tried to see just what was coming at him. As it turns out, the black cloud was actually several hundred flying magical beasts. "So I came across a flock of black-winged birds." Jian Chen had read about the black-winged birds within the library at Kargath Academy. These birds lived together in the mountains and had large bodies. A mature black-winged bird was the size of an adult human at the very least with a wingspan of 10 meters. These black-winged birds weren't Class 5 magical beasts, they were generally Class 3 or Class 4 at the most. Without decreasing his speed, Jian Chen flew toward the flock of black-winged birds. Just as he got within 10 kilometers, several trees from under the flock suddenly burst upward. In an explosion of splinters, the trees flew toward the flock like azure and violet shooting stars. Caught off guard, the black-winged birds were struck through their bodies by the trees and began to fall to the ground. In a span of a few moments, the hundreds of birds were all unable to resist with multiple wounds over their bodies, rendering them incapable of flight. Now that Jian Chen's strength was equivalent to that of a Heaven Saint Master, a Class 4 magical beast like the black-winged birds were no match. With Jian Chen's ability to control any living thing with just his mind, he could fight against his enemy using the tactics of the majority against the minority. On the way, Jian Chen had come across 3 other disturbances with magical beasts. However, these magical beasts weren't Class 4, and were Class 5 magical beasts. They all had an innate wisdom and instinct that warned them to not attack any person that could fly. 4 hours later, Jian Chen had traveled 2,000 kilometers before arriving at a mountain range. Then, after another 100 kilometers, he finally arrived at the battleground where he fought the 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Without any further hesitation, he quickly flew forward another 100 kilometers to the place where he had hidden the white tiger cub. It didn't take long for Jian Chen to arrive there. Slowly descending to the ground, he came to the tree where he had hidden the tiger cub. The moment he saw that the cover was gone and the tree barren, he realized the tiger cub was nowhere to be seen. This was not a surprise for Jian Chen. He had spotted the traces earlier and tried to track where the tiger cub had gone. After some time, he wasn't able to find anything. Jian Chen began to grow solemn by this point, but he was not frantic just yet. Although the tiger cub was lost, he still had a method of finding the tiger cub. Immediately rising up from the ground, he flew toward Mingyang City. An hour later, he arrived in the skies above and without any form of concealment, flew into the city in front of everyone's eyes. By now, Mingyang City had already returned to its normal state. The frenzied mood they had been in while looking for the tiger cub had long since passed, and even the portraits of Jian Chen's face had been taken down. After the second day of Jian Chen's departure, all news relating to the event had disappeared. But when Jian Chen flew into the sky, he was instantly spotted by the people down below. Each one raised their heads to the sky and dropped their mouths in shock. Quickly, news began to circulate around the city, and thus everyone became aware that a Heaven Saint Master had arrived in their city. The city lord's mansion was the very first to grab hold of this information and immediately dispatched some soldiers to greet him. In this era where saint rulers secluded themselves from the world, Heaven Saint Masters were widely regarded as the top of the pyramid on the continent. For a Heaven Saint Master to come to Mingyang City, that was no small event. Within the Huangpu clan, the affair that had happened some time ago had no major impact on their clan. The entire compound was calm once more, and several troops patrolled around the compound as a way to guarantee their safety. Just as a squadron was walking past an abandoned house, someone suddenly cried out, "Captain, look up at the skies." At that, the soldiers lifted their heads to the sky one by one, and when they looked, they were instantly stunned and their eyes grew as wide as dinner plates. A simple clothed person was slowly descending from the sky just 3 meters away from the squadron. Heave! Heaven! Heaven Saint Master! The captain had a look of utter shock as he stared at the young face of Jian Chen, unable to believe his eyes. For a youth this young to reach the realm of a Heaven Saint Master, it was almost completely unheard of. Respectful sir, I am the captain of Unit 3 of the Huangpu clan, how may I serve you? The captain tried to quash the surprise in his voice, but had stuttered as he spoke to him. Jian Chen cast a glance at the guard briefly before waving his hand. "This place doesn't concern you, go do whatever you were doing." With that tone, it was almost as if Jian Chen was the master of the Huangpu clan. The captain didn't make any objections and only respectfully saluted him in response before bringing his guards away from the area. Chapter 381, The Disappearance of the Little White Tiger. After the guards left, Jian Chen had a faint smile on his face. Bringing up his right hand for a moment, a space ring suddenly flew out the window before landing on his hand. This space ring was the ring that was holding both the seal of Treasure Mountain and the Duanyin sword. With the ring in his hand, Jian Chen looked into the space ring only to find both the seal of Treasure Mountain and the Duanyin sword still stored inside. They had not been taken just yet. Jian Chen could barely hide his joy at this. He knew that the third elder of the Shi family had a method of finding their clan's ruler armament, but the space ring had managed to avoid detection within the Huangpu clan for days. Something like this was a joyous occasion to celebrate. On the way here, Jian Chen was worried that the hidden space ring would have been discovered, but now that he was here, those worries were completely superfluous. Letting out a sigh in relief, a happy smile appeared on Jian Chen's face. He slowly closed his eyes, and in 2 breaths' time, the well within the Huangpu clan compound exploded as a purple and gold box flew through the air. Then, as if attracted by a mysterious power, it flew straight to Jian Chen's hand. Opening up the box, Jian Chen could see the silver space ring tucked away inside. With the other space ring still in his hand, he took that other space ring and threw it into the second one along with the box and left. Not too long after Jian Chen left, a group of nervous people quickly scrambled over to where Jian Chen was. Among the crowd was the master of the Huangpu clan. But Jian Chen had already left the area. Even after searching for a moment, the master of the clan could do nothing else but give up. Flying through the air, Jian Chen quickly made his way out of Mingyang City. On the way, countless people looked up at the sky with expressions of amazement and wonder, but Jian Chen didn't stay around long enough to see. His first priority was to find the whereabouts of the white tiger and to ensure that it wasn't in any danger. In midair, Jian Chen took out the white patches of fur given to him by Rum Guinness. This patch of fur had a special way of finding where Rum Guinness was as well as where the white tiger was. After following the directions Rum Guinness had told him with the white tiger cub's fur, it began to straighten up before curving at the edges as if pointing Jian Chen in a specific direction like a compass. Jian Chen looked in the direction where the fur was pointing only to discover it was where he had just come from. Did the white tiger cub run off to the mountain range? Jian Chen thought. The mountain range in question was connected to Cross Mountains and contained one of the kings, which was the white tiger cub's enemy. If the white tiger cub were to fall into the king's paws, then it would be over for the cub. Crap, I hope the cub hasn't been discovered by the king of Cross Mountains. With a serious expression and no hesitation at all, he flew off in the direction the fur pointed. 4 hours later, Jian Chen had deviated from the path back to Longevity Valley and was instead headed toward Cross Mountains a good distance away. As he flew closer and closer to Cross Mountains, Jian Chen's face began to grow more and more unsightly. He could practically confirm that the white tiger cub was most likely in Cross Mountains. Slowing down, Jian Chen floated in midair as he started to think. If the white tiger cub was found by the king of Cross Mountains, he was doing nothing but charging toward his death. Suddenly, Elder Xiu's image appeared in Jian Chen's mind, almost as if he was giving Jian Chen a rope to save his life. Could Elder Xiu be of help here? Jian Chen thought as he began to calculate things. Elder Xiu's cultivation was immeasurably deep, he could possibly be the only one that could withstand the might of the Gilligan clan. But then again, Elder Xiu had grown weary of mortal conflicts and preferred to keep to his isolated days. Jian Chen didn't wish to bring Elder Xiu into his affairs for his own personal interests as well. After all, the Gilligan clan of Cross Mountains was a huge power. He didn't wish to add to Elder Xiu's troubles by having him help accomplish an unknown task. After floating in the air with some doubt, Jian Chen bit his lip and flew in the direction of the white tiger cub. At this moment he wasn't able to tell if the tiger cub was captured or not. If the tiger cub had been taken by a weaker magical beast, there was still a chance. Like a compass, the white tiger fur led Jian Chen in the same direction for 2 hours. Finally, Jian Chen arrived at one of the mountain peaks and began to look down at the scenery. By now, Jian Chen was nearing the border to Cross Mountains. Underneath him, a group of spirit apes were gathered nearby. Standing on top of the tall trees, they gnashed their teeth as they howled at the floating Jian Chen. Jian Chen looked at the fur in his hand. From this, he could tell that the white tiger was somewhere nearby. After putting the fur away, he began to scour the ground below. He confirmed that he was already deeply entrenched within a nest of spirit apes with an innumerable amount of them standing nearby with even more rushing to the area. Even more so, there was also the scent of several other Class 5 magical beasts. If he wasn't flying, then he would have been surrounded by the apes a long time ago. Suddenly, several golden figures could be seen flying through the air. There were 5, 3-meter-tall golden spirit apes that were surrounding Jian Chen. Each one of them had a ferocious glare that boded nothing well for Jian Chen. Jian Chen began to grow serious now. He had been underestimating the spirit apes before, but he hadn't thought that there would be a class 6 spirit ape, let alone 5 of them. Now that there were 5 class 6 spirit apes, Jian Chen didn't dare be careless anymore. With his mind, countless of tree leaves began to launch into the sky from the forest below. Then, with an azure and violet glow, they flew around Jian Chen's side as a sort of protective layering. This strange display of magic stunned the 5 class 6 spirit apes, but one of the spirit apes narrowed his eyes and roared. Then, he began to charge at Jian Chen with his fists raised high in the air. Immediately, the tree leaves that were flying around Jian Chen transformed to become 2 swords that were used to slash at the spirit ape. Bang! As the 2 sides struck each other, a loud bang could be heard. The swords made from tree leaves were blown apart by the spirit ape's fist, but the fist had 2 conspicuous-looking wounds. Even blood could be seen flowing down from it. Seeing how the hand of the spirit ape was bleeding, the other spirit apes were stunned. Each one looked at the human with astonished eyes as if trying to understand how the inexplicably weak tree leaves had managed to become so sharp. Zhi. One of the spirit apes let out an indistinguishable sound, but it was apparently an order as the other 4 spirit apes brandished their fists and flew in to attack him. Jian Chen's eyes flashed with the 2 colors as he began to control the leaves flying around him. In an instant, they formed into 10 swords and shot toward the 5 spirit apes. Another explosive bang rang through the air as the spirit apes attacked the swords. Like before, their fists gained new deep scars. But instead of stopping to wonder, the class 6 spirit apes continued to fly at Jian Chen and tried to attack him with a rippling amount of energy. Hurtling their fists through the air, they tried to block any of Jian Chen's escape paths. Both of Jian Chen's hands were empty now. As he floated in midair, the tree leaves began to glow brightly with the azure and violet sword chi before flying toward the 5 spirit apes like a moth to a flame. Knowing just how strong this sword chi was now, the fists of the spirit apes began to ripple with even more power before at last, there was a golden glow to their fists that made them invulnerable. Then, with those fists, they struck out at the tree leaves. But because of the sheer amount of tree leaves that covered the sky, almost every inch, the 5 spirits apes weren't able to defuse them all. Many of the tree leaves began to shoot into their skin, breaking through their rather strong fur. Jutting into their bodies, they left scar after scar, dyeing their entire body red with blood. In a flash, their golden skin was more crimson than gold. Zitzitizi. The 5 spirit apes began to howl in panic and pain before they utilized the earth-attributed energy they had to form outside of their bodies as a secondary form of earthen armor. The usage of the earth-attributed energy would form an incredibly strong defensive armor. Even when the azure and violet sword chi-infused leaves shot into it, all they did was leave a scar behind, they were not able to break through the armor. Taking an opportunity to retreat, he flew away from the enclosure the spirit apes had trapped him in. Then, pushing his empty hands, a dozen of the trees below exploded into wooden shrapnel. Transforming into a flood of wood, they flew into the air and in an instant, they flew toward the spirit apes relentlessly. But with the armor, the spirit apes didn't even bother to take notice of the wood flood. Brandishing their fists, they chased Jian Chen with a reluctance to give up. Continuing to fly backward, Jian Chen watched as the wood flood he had created surrounded the apes. Covering the entire sky for them, the shrapnel began to shoot straight into the spirit apes mercilessly. Suffering from such an intensive attack, the armors of the spirit apes were riddled with holes and were smashed apart an instant later. Another surge of energy rippled from their body, but it was quickly battered down by Jian Chen's attack, forced to break apart once again. But disregarding this, the spirit apes continued to chase down Jian Chen. Jian Chen's eyes flashed brightly with color as he lifted his right hand up. A single blade of pure sword chi began to form as Jian Chen began to use the origin energy for the sword spirits. While his normal attacks were able to injure the Class 6 magical beasts, they were unable to land a killing blow. If he wanted to heavily injure the Class 6 magical beasts, he would need to use the sword spirits. Chapter 382, Summoning of the Ape King. Wielding the origin energy of the Azure and Violet sword spirits, even the Class 6 spirit apes were able to feel Jian Chen's might. Instead of running away, they continued to inch closer toward him with equally serious expressions. With their fists flying through the air, the space around them began to distort from the energy. By now, both of Jian Chen's eyes were completely lit with two different colors. The left eye was violet and the other azure. A sight like this was especially frightening and made him seem like a demon in disguise. The origin energy was like a beam of light in Jian Chen's hand that continued to expel a sharp amount of sword qi into the sky around it. In moments, it was almost as if the entire area was fully consumed by it. Following an azure and violet swish of light, the origin energy from the sword spirits painted the entire area a splendid light as it stabbed at the spirit apes. Kacha! 5 separate cracks could be heard as the energy surrounding the 5 spirit apes' fists all shattered. Following a cleaving light from the sword spirits, a wound could be seen on each of the fists. The cut was so severe that it went straight past the bone and felt as if it had nearly cut their hand in two. Zhi. The intense pain caused each of the apes to shriek before gnashing their teeth together as they looked at their nearly bisected hands. Instead of being afraid, however, their innate berserk nature began to swell out of them, causing the fierce glint in their eyes to multiply as they glared dangerously at Jian Chen. Zitzit is Hizi. One of the spirit apes began to cry out loud in the language known only to spirit apes as a way to communicate. After hearing the first spirit ape, the other 4 apes looked as if they were hesitating. However, they gnawed at their teeth and surrounded the first ape. With their swaying bodies, energy began to pour out before shooting straight to the first ape. Jian Chen continued to watch this strange sight with a confused look. The 5 spirit apes had some sort of strange technique where 4 spirit apes could convene their energy to the one in the middle. If this went on, then the spirit ape standing in the middle would have the strength of 5 Class 6 spirit apes. With such a strong concentration of power like that, just how strong would the middle one become? A flash of murderous intent could be seen in Jian Chen's mind. There was no way he could allow for the spirit apes to continue with this activity. In the case that whatever they were doing was finished, he would be up against an extremely terrifying opponent that would definitely prove troublesome. Just as Jian Chen was about to attack the spirit apes to prevent anything from happening, an elderly voice suddenly called out from nowhere. Halt, just what sort of reception is this to a guest? Wise spirit, abundant spirit, golden spirit, kind spirit, clean spirit, hurry up and receive the guest properly, do not idle about. This elderly voice contained awe-inspiring power in his voice. At the same time, it was impossible for Jian Chen to pinpoint where this voice was coming from. Although the sudden voice had thrown off Jian Chen's plan to attack the spirit apes, Jian Chen was still looking around him seriously. It was finally after seeing nothing unusual that he began to use his omnipresence to look around the area. But when Jian Chen's omnipresence reached one of the mountain peaks, a transparent barrier blocked its path, rendering him unable to sense what was past it. Jian Chen blanched as the thought of retreating came into his mind. In order to be able to put up a barrier like this, one would need to be able to comprehend the profound mysteries of the world, meaning a saint ruler or higher. For this unknown entity to be able to put up a barrier and make his voice unable to be pinpointed, this entity would most likely have to be no weaker than a saint ruler. Although the origin energy from the sword spirits was strong enough to deal with Class 6 magical beasts or heaven saint masters, it was completely useless against a saint ruler. When the elderly voice had rang out, the 5 spirit apes had stopped their movements. However, they continued to glare at Jian Chen angrily as if he was their most hated enemy. There was a conflicted look on Jian Chen's face. He didn't know whether or not he should stay or run, but if a saint ruler had really wanted to be his opponent, running would be useless. The only comforting thought was that there was no hostility in the elder's voice, so Jian Chen could let out a sigh of relief. Wise spirit, abundant spirit, golden spirit, kind spirit, clean spirit, hurry up and receive the guest, do not idle about. The elderly voice could be heard once more without any more hints on where it was coming from. Zhi. The 5 spirit apes responded to the call with a respectful bow toward one of the mountain peaks. Then, with a mutual glance to each other, they beckoned Jian Chen unwillingly. Jian Chen didn't say a word and instead gave a small smile before flying toward the highest mountain peak with the bloody spirit apes following from behind. Each were still biting their teeth as if they hadn't forgotten about their animosity with Jian Chen. Not too long later, Jian Chen arrived at the tallest mountain peak. On this peak, there was a single barrier that seemed to cover the entire mountain peak. Suddenly, a small crack appeared within the barrier without a sound. It continued to expand before finally growing to a size large enough for a human to enter. Human, enter. I wish to speak to you. The voice spoke once more. But this time, Jian Chen could hear it coming from the mountain peak. Jian Chen hesitated for a moment, but he continued to fly inside. The spirit apes followed close behind and continued to bow toward the mountain peak respectfully. Quickly spotting a gigantic cave in the mountain peak, Jian Chen could see several words written in human language over the cave, Cave of the Ape King. Along with the spirit apes, Jian Chen entered the cave. The Cave of the Ape King was well lit, so not a single area of the cave was left untouched. The passageway through the cave was so extensive that Jian Chen had walked for 100 meters through the wide areas before finally coming to the belly of the mountain. There were plenty of curious plants that had sweet fragrances. These fragrances had a miraculous effect that made anyone feel happy as well as removing any feelings of anger. Aside from the strange plants in the cave, there was a simple arrangement of furniture. Only a jade table and bed could be seen. From the luster of both, it wasn't hard to see that both items were very expensive. On the jade bed, a grizzly-haired elderly man sat cross-legged with plenty of wrinkles on his face so that it was hard to distinguish his facial characteristics. By his side, there was a single white-winged tiger cub sleeping peacefully. Compared to the white tiger days ago, the white tiger cub was much larger than before and now measured nearly a meter long. Upon seeing the white tiger cub, Jian Chen had a look of utter surprise on his face. When he realized just what place he was in, a feeling of pressure could be felt once more. The 5 spirit apes quickly came to the elderly man's side and knelt down respectfully before speaking in gibberish that Jian Chen assumed to be monkey speak. The cross-legged elder looked at the 5 spirit apes with a calm eye. You were all too unruly. The human in front of us is a guest, just how could you receive him in such a way? Hurry up and apologize. Zitsitizi. The spirit apes immediately cried out in dissatisfaction as if trying to justify themselves. Not all humans are our enemies. This one in front of us is a guest of the spirit apes. Hurry up and apologize. The elders stressed with a tone of finality. The 5 spirit apes hung their heads in dejected defeat before crying out to Jian Chen unwillingly. At the same time, they bowed their bodies as form of apology to him. Right now, Jian Chen could only tell that the man had no hostility aimed toward himself. With a smile, he cupped his hands together. This was a misunderstanding from my own carelessness. If it were not for my recklessness, this would not have happened. Allow me to apologize as well. You 5 may go. The elder spoke to the spirit apes. The 5 spirit apes bowed toward the elder once more before shooting a quick indignant glares at Jian Chen as they left the cave. As soon as the spirit apes left, the elder stood up from the bed and sat down at the table's side instead. Human, come sit. I give my thanks, Ape King. Jian Chen cupped his hands before sitting opposite of him. With a deep look, the elder began to size up Jian Chen for a moment before sighing in admiration. It is no wonder Rum Guinness holds you in high praise. You stand out from the rest, even with your blood-stained hands, you hold a righteous spirit. For Rum Guinness to entrust her child to you, that is a sensible choice. Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. Senior, do you know Rum Guinness? The elder smiled. You may call me Ape King. The appellations you humans use is something I am not accustomed to. The elder grew grieved after that, however. With a long sigh, he spoke. Rum Guinness, her husband, and I were all elders of the Gilligan clan for over 1,000 years. We grew as close as family, and when they came across trouble, I knew it was in regards to their child. Chapter 383, 100 Grass Wine. After hearing what the Ape King said, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel shocked. He hadn't thought that the Ape King would have been an elder for the Gilligan clan. But after hearing that he and Rum Guinness were good friends, he felt at ease with himself. At the very least, he knew that the Ape King wouldn't report the white tiger cub's whereabouts to the king of the Gilligan clan. For the currently pitiful white tiger cub, this was a good sign. The Ape King continued to speak. Since Rum Guinness entrusted her child to you, I can presume that she has told you about the child being a heavenly tiger god as well as the associated dangers with it. Jian Chen nodded his head without speaking a word. Human, for you to come into Cross Mountains despite the dangers, I can admire your valor. Rum Guinness did not find the wrong person to trust. The Ape King spoke with appreciation. Senior Ape King flatters this one too much. This one was luckily prepared for this situation, that's all. Jian Chen tried to sound as modest as possible. The Ape King knew that Jian Chen was trying to sound polite, and so he smiled. Human, you are a strong one with a strange power. I have never seen another human like you. Rum Guinness' child will not befall any danger by traveling with you. You must bear in mind to never divulge the fact that the child is a heavenly tiger god, otherwise, it will be very problematic for you. You needn't worry about the child's wings. There are many magical beasts under the heavens, many of them have wings. Aside from Class 7 magical beasts, other beasts will not know that this child has the special blood of a heavenly tiger god running through its veins. So hiding this fact from the human world would also be a wise choice to make. Most importantly, you must never allow a Class 7 magical beast to know about it. Senior Ape King, could the tiger cub not stay with you? With how vast the Cross Mountains are, the king of the Gilligan clan would surely not be able to find the cub here. With your strength, this would be no major task. Jian Chen asked. Right now he was still in danger from the Shur and Jeda clan. Both families held a great deal of strength and could be considered one of the top families on the continent. The tiger cub would not be safe at his side, and Jian Chen only wished for the tiger cub to grow up strong without any sufferings. It had suffered enough already. The Ape King shook his head instantly before speaking with a decisive tone. Definitely not. You do not understand the situation Cross Mountains are in with the Gilligan clan. Although the territory of the spirit apes is at the border of Cross Mountains, which is some distance away from the Gilligan clan, it isn't safe for the heavenly tiger god to stay within this place for too long. Even our spirit apes clan would be burnt to the ground if news were to spread. Jian Chen grew deathly serious as he began to think, is that right? Then the only option is for me to take the tiger cub away. The child would be safest traveling the human world by your side. While the Gilligan clan is admittedly strong, even the elders would not dare step into the human territory without permission. Letting the heavenly tiger god stay in the human world would at the very least avoid persecution from the Gilligan clan. A Class 7 magical beast can transform into a human form. If the king of the Gilligan clan were to transform into a human and infiltrate our world, then wouldn't he be undetectable? Jian Chen asked with worry. The Ape King laughed and replied, you needn't worry. We have an agreement with the strong ones of the human world. Unless there is approval from both sides, neither Saint Ruler can enter the other side or they risk being punished by two separate punishments. Ah, so there was something like that? I am relieved. Jian Chen's brows furrowed. This was an interesting piece of information. The Ape King continued to smile brightly. Human, you have not told me your name yet. Senior Ape King, I am called Jian Chen. Jian Chen cupped his hands together respectfully. Jian Chen. The Ape King tested the name out as if he was trying to commit the name to memory before slowly extending his right hand. From a space ring, he took out 2 jade bottles and a carefully engraved wine bottle. Jian Chen, this is the specialty of us spirit apes, the 100-grass wine. Using the treasures in the Cross Mountains, I was able to ferment it for over 1,000 years and I am loath to drink even a single sip. Since you are Rum Guinness' friend and not an outsider, I'll permit you to sample the wine created by us spirit apes. With that, the Ape King twisted the lid off and poured out a green liquid from within. Immediately, a sweet-smelling fragrance permeated the entire cave so that both Jian Chen and the Ape King could smell it. The Ape King extended a cup of the 100-grass wine toward Jian Chen. This is a priceless treasure that cannot be bought anywhere and contains a majestic amount of qi. It isn't some minor drink with minor effects, its best use is for helping a person think concisely. Help think concisely. Jian Chen immediately grew happy. To be able to have such an effect like this was something he desperately wanted to help impact his strength for the better. The Ape King was seemingly pleased with Jian Chen's thunderstruck expression. Is it not shocking? The most common 100-grass wine would usually only be able to help a person increase their saint force, meaning anyone under the Heaven Saint Master realm for you humans would be able to use it. But the 100-grass wine in my possession is a once-in-a-thousand-year item. It is far different than what a normal 100-grass wine is like. Even if a saint ruler from the human world were to take a sip, they would feel the benefits straight away. Without hesitation, Jian Chen gave a hasty thanks before hurriedly drinking down the wine. Jian Chen could only feel a rising sensation make its way through his body. The very instant the wine reached his stomach, it transformed into vital energy. However, because his saint weapon had been destroyed, the vital energy was unable to be absorbed and slowly began to disappear. At the same time, an azure glow of light began to rise from Jian Chen's dantian before entering his forehead and then ultimately blending with Jian Chen's thoughts. A beautiful sensation occurred in Jian Chen's mind as he felt his spirit become unbelievably comfortable. There was a pleasure that could be felt almost as if he had transcended on becoming an immortal, causing him to cry out in joy. Jian Chen slowly closed his eyes and allowed his spirit to enjoy the pleasantness. While he was comfortable, his thoughts had begun to condense in a way that even the sword spirits were benefiting from, as shown from the lively thoughts being transmitted. After a while, the joyous feeling finally began to recede, causing Jian Chen to open his eyes. At this moment, he could sense that in such a short amount of time, his thoughts had already soared to an unprecedented degree. This caused Jian Chen to nearly jump with joy. The 100-grass wine within the possession of the Ape King was truly too amazing. Afterward, Jian Chen's eyes began to glow with a fiery expression. The 100-grass wine had given him an excellent boost in strength, if only he could have another cup. Momentarily, Jian Chen's look toward the Ape King had changed. Seeing the glint in Jian Chen's eyes, the Ape King's eye twitched before collecting the 100-grass wine back into the bottle with a displeased look. Do not even think about my 100-grass wine. I've aged this wine for over 1,000 years in order for it to have such an effect. However much you get is however much you drink. I myself only have so much. If this was some ordinary wine, then I would gladly give you more. Upon hearing the Ape King's words, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel embarrassed, that is. Senior Ape King, this 100-grass wine has given me a tremendous boost, see. Out of the question. The Ape King waved his hand with no hesitation. It was only for the face of Rum Guinness that I served you a cup. How could you not know contentment? The Ape King treated the 100-grass wine like treasure, so there was no way he would give Jian Chen any more. Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before taking out a fist-sized seal from within his space ring. Senior Ape King, why don't I make an offer for your 100-grass wine? Jian Chen was nearly drooling at the mouth for the wine since it was a great boon to him. For the sake of his strength, he desperately wanted the item. Definitely not, no trade. Chapter 384, leaving the cave of the Ape King. Jian Chen declined to respond to the Ape King's warning and instead replied with a smile, "I know." The Ape King stared deeply at Jian Chen with a serious gaze before saying, "Any family with a ruler armament is a family with power. A person traveling alone with the heavenly tiger god will surely come across many unforeseen events. Senior Ape King, there is a reason why we have the expression, counter soldiers with arms, and water with an earth weir. The situation has already come, but there is no use mentioning that now. Although the family in question is very strong, the Tian Yuan continent is massive, so they will not be able to find me easily." Jian Chen spoke without fear. "I indeed hope that way. I only wish for the child of Rum Guinness to stay safe from any wrongful harm." The Ape King sighed before taking out a bottle. With a pained face, he gave it to Jian Chen. "For the child of Rum Guinness, I will part myself from one of my treasures. This bottle of 100 grass wine is for you. I hope that you will be able to improve yourself, this way, you will be able to properly protect the heavenly tiger god." "Many thanks, Senior Ape King." Jian Chen cried out in joy before quickly putting the bottle into his space ring as if afraid that the Ape King would change his mind. "Senior Ape King, then this ruler armament will be given to you in exchange for the 100 grass wine." Taking the bottle, Jian Chen pushed the seal of Treasure Mountain toward the Ape King. The Ape King cast an eye at the item for a moment before speaking, "The ruler armaments of you humans serve no use for me. Take it with you. If you come across a method to use it, then the ruler armament will be of use to you." Hearing that, Jian Chen hesitated for a moment before taking the seal of Treasure Mountain back. The growth of a heavenly tiger god is excruciatingly slow, they must consume a large amount of heavenly resources in order to grow. Since I have spent many years collecting every type of said resource and Rum Guinness is my dear friend, I shall bequeath them to her child for the sake of growing faster. Waving his hand, several heavenly resources began to fill the table. 1,000-year ginseng, spirit mushrooms, knotweed, dragon's tongue grass, core plant, 100-year-old spirit root and so on. All sorts of ingredients that Jian Chen had never seen before appeared on the table. These items were all being given to the tiger cub, so Jian Chen did not decline any of them. With a word of thanks, Jian Chen began to collect the heavenly resources. The Ape King spoke once more, "Stay for a while. I will be feeding the resources to the heavenly tiger god in the meantime. The child is in a sleep to digest them right now. We shall see if there are any changes later. When the child wakes, you may take him and leave." After that, the Ape King ignored Jian Chen and sat back on his bed. Closing his eyes, he descended into a calm meditative sleep. The belly of the cave had become deathly quiet. In his boredom, Jian Chen walked around the cave observing the strange plants being cultivated. After waiting for 6 hours, the tiger cub finally awoke. Both of its bright eyes began to flicker open and immediately took notice of Jian Chen, who was standing not too far away. Upon seeing Jian Chen, the white tiger cub was stunned. Afterward, it began to cry out happily before leaping from the bed toward Jian Chen. Hearing the tiger cub's cry, Jian Chen's face lit up in happiness before turning around just in time to see a white streak of light shooting toward his chest. Catching the cub in both hands, the tiger cub knocked against Jian Chen's torso with enough force that Jian Chen had to take several steps back. Mrrr! The white tiger cub was exceedingly happy and continued to purr into Jian Chen's chest as it rubbed its head against Jian Chen's chin. Its tongue licked at Jian Chen without stop in a clear indication of its joy. After the events of the past few days, the white tiger had begun to dote upon Jian Chen a lot more. Jian Chen smiled as he looked at the tiger cub. He could clearly tell that the tiger cub had grown heavier and even bigger since the last time he saw it. All 4 of the paws of the cub had already grown to be incredibly sharp, and even its fangs were terrifying to look at. "Jian Chen, take the heavenly tiger god and leave this place. The child cannot stay here for too long." The Ape King's voice could be heard. Opening his eyes, he smiled in the direction of the white tiger with an affectionate expression. "Yes, Senior Ape King, this one will be leaving then, farewell." Jian Chen spoke to the Ape King before leading the tiger cub away. Mrrr, the white tiger cub seemed to have realized that they were leaving and swung both of its reluctant eyes toward the Ape King before waving a paw at him in farewell. Leaving the cave, the outside world was already quite dark with the bright moon shining down on the ground below. The night was extraordinarily beautiful with moonlight shining everywhere. Even an unruly child would be stunned by the beauty and would be fascinated by the shine. The Ape King had given no farewell. Jian Chen carried the tiger cub on his chest and began to fly into the sky. Leaving the mountain peak, he came across the barrier and slipped past it without a sound. After leaving the barrier, Jian Chen refused to stick around any longer and flew toward Longevity Valley. The tiger cub was extremely curious on how they were flying and clutched at Jian Chen's arms tightly. Its eyes shined brightly with pure curiosity as it twisted and turned its head around. Staying snugly within Jian Chen's arms, it continued to enjoy the view with an adorable expression on its face. By the time Jian Chen returned to Longevity Valley, it was already nearly daytime. By then, the village was already bustling about. Jian Chen didn't return to the village just yet and instead descended within the valley and walked the rest of the way with the tiger cub by his side. "Hey, Jian Chen, you're finally back. Did you bring me anything good to eat?" Little Fatty walked to meet him from some distance away. The moment he saw the tiger by Jian Chen's side, he cried out with an astonished look, "Jian Chen, where did you find this magical beast? It has wings, so does that mean it'll be able to fly when it grows up?" Jian Chen nodded his head. "This magical beast was found by me in the forest. What do you think? Is it cute?" Jian Chen remembered the Ape King's words and said nothing to divulge the tiger cub's identity. Jian Chen and Little Fatty continued to laugh and banter with each other as they returned to the village. On the way, several villagers called out to Jian Chen in greeting. Jian Chen's ability to fly was already known by everyone. He was able to become a Heaven Saint Master at such a young age and thus had earned the respect of the entire village. When Jian Chen returned to the house, Elder Xiao and Xiao Mi both came in with their hose perched on their shoulders at the same time. "Ah, Jian Chen, what's that you brought with you?" Xiao Mi glanced at the white tiger cub with a strange look. Laughing, Jian Chen spoke, "Uncle Xiao Mi, this is a magical beast I found while I was outside the valley." "Little beast? What little beast? This place has a hierarchy of grade. Is this a low-leveled magical beast?" Xiao Mi spoke with curiosity. Upon hearing low-level magical beast, the tiger cub seemed as if it was displeased. Holding its head up high from Jian Chen's embrace, the tiger cub revealed the sharp fangs it had as it gave off a king-like aura toward Xiao Mi. The reaction of the tiger cub caused Xiao Mi to look surprised. Sizing up the cub, he looked at the wings on its back with a startled look before turning back to his father. "Father, you are the knowledgeable one here. Have you ever seen such a magical beast? This one doesn't seem to be a low-level beast." Elder Xiao remained silent as he stared deeply at the tiger cub. In the end, when he looked at the wings on the tiger's back, his eyebrows furrowed together as he revealed a ponderous expression. Jian Chen had a faint smile on his face as he looked at Elder Xiao. He wasn't worried if the identity of the tiger cub was known to Elder Xiao since only a Class 7 magical beast would know of the true identity that ran through the cub's veins. No humans would know of the true identity since a heavenly tiger god was not seen since the ancient past. Even if Jian Chen mentioned its name, very few people would know about it. That was because it had been far too long. The last time it had been seen was during the time of Mo Tianyun. Seeing how Elder Xiao had been silent for a long time, Xiao Mi asked once more with shock, "Father, could it be that even you don't know the tiger's history?" Ignoring Xiao Mi, the elder continued to look at the tiger's wings with narrowed eyes. In that moment, his body began to shake as if he had suddenly thought about something unbelievable and was overwhelmed with shock because of it. Seeing the elder's reaction, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. Don't tell me he figured it out. Chapter 385, Pressure Elder Xiao had a shocked expression as his eyes stared at the tiger in Jian Chen's hands. A look of utter disbelief could be seen. "Father, what's wrong?" Xiao Mi was speechless at the sudden change in the elder's expression. This was the very first time he had ever seen his father in such a state. Elder Xiao continued to ignore Xiao Mi as his eyes became more and more frosty. Carefully analyzing the tiger cub in Jian Chen's hands even more, his eyes seemed as if they could clearly see every single detail on the tiger. With the elder's stare being a tad bit frightening and the cub still quite young, it had begun to feel intimidated by the elder. The cub's petite body tried to burrow deeper into Jian Chen's arms as if trying to hide from the elder like it was scared. "Elder Xiao, what are you doing?" Jian Chen was beginning to grow nervous. He didn't know just what to think from the elder's actions. Had he really seen through the tiger's identity? The Ape King had told him before that a human shouldn't know of the true identity of a heavenly tiger god. Elder Xiao let out a long breath of air as the cold glint in his eyes began to recede. In a flash he had reverted back to his original expression with just a small complicated look as he turned to Jian Chen. "Jian Chen, talk to me honestly. This magical beast you found, was it really found in the forest?" "Elder Xiao, could it be you know of this tiger's background?" Jian Chen stared at the elder with an astonished look. The elder sighed once more before looking to little Fatty, go and plow the fields. "Yes, grandfather." Fatty replied before giving both Jian Chen and the white tiger a curious look. But in the end, he went out to the fields to do as his grandfather asked. After little Fatty had left, Elder Xiao looked at Jian Chen and Xiao Mi. "You two follow me." Turning about, the elder walked into one of the rooms of the house. Xiao Mi could feel that the situation had grown serious and cast a deep glance toward the tiger cub before following his father into one of the rooms nervously. Jian Chen stroked the head of the cub gently before following after the elder. This was the personal room of Elder Xiao. It was only 10 square meters, and the furniture was arranged in a simplistic manner. There was only a bed and wardrobe in the room and a small pile of objects in a corner. Aside from this, there was nothing else. The moment Jian Chen entered the room, a faint but transparent barrier enshrouded the entire room. Upon seeing the sudden activation of the barrier, Xiao Mi had a startled look. "Father, what is the meaning of this? What has made you so cautious to create a barrier?" Jian Chen's face grew deathly serious as well as he stepped forward. No matter if he could believe it or not, one thing was certain, Elder Xiao had definitely figured out the matter behind the heavenly tiger god. Elder Xiao ignored Xiao Mi once more and stared deeply at Jian Chen. "Jian Chen, speak the truth. Where did you come across this cub?" "Elder Xiao, do you know of the tiger cub's identity?" Jian Chen listened carefully for confirmation. Elder Xiao's eyes latched onto the tiger cub and spoke, "If my guess is not wrong, then this cub is the heavenly tiger god that has appeared several times in the ancient past." Jian Chen was startled at the elder's confirmation. Although he had guessed that the elder knew, hearing the elder personally confirm it still caused his heart to start beating irregularly. "Jian Chen, it seems that you are aware of what a heavenly tiger god is." The elder looked at Jian Chen with a solemn gaze. "That is correct, I know of the heavenly tiger god." It was only now that Jian Chen decided not to hide it. He then began to regale his tale of rum Guinness and what he was entrusted with. After listening to Jian Chen's story, the elder had descended into a quiet calm that was filled with thought. Jian Chen didn't make a sound in fear of breaking the elder's train of thought. Xiao Mi continued to stand some distance away in complete shock at Jian Chen and the tiger cub he was carrying. He couldn't believe that the cub would unexpectedly have a mysterious background that was far beyond what he could even imagine. After a while, the elder finally sighed. The appearance of a heavenly tiger god is something that should come as a blessing to the magical beast clans. If they are able to exploit this blessing, then they would be able to lay claim to a heavenly tiger god of the past. In that case, the magical beast clans would have a monstrous amount of power against the human world. "Jian Chen, this heavenly tiger god you have may very well bring catastrophe to our human world." Hearing this, Jian Chen turned pale with fright from what the elder said. Could he possibly want to eliminate the tiger cub here and now in order to avoid any future trouble? "That should be unlikely, Elder Xiu. This tiger cub is very obedient. And with the current circumstances, I'm afraid that it'll remain within the human world for now. With time the cub will become partial to the human world and wouldn't be used against us. Furthermore, the cub's father was killed by the king of the Gilligan clan while the mother was seriously injured. When the cub matures, it will want to take revenge on the clan and not against humans." Jian Chen tried to explain in a hurry. If the elder wanted to kill the cub, then Jian Chen would have no chance of protecting it. The elder nodded his head with a thoughtful look. Your words have merit to them. Even if the heavenly tiger god will not prove to be a danger to humanity, it would still be a disaster if it were to travel by your side." Elder Xiu didn't let Jian Chen speak another word and continued to speak. "This situation isn't as simple as you may think. The king of the Gilligan clan wouldn't try to kill the heavenly tiger god for no reason. That is because a heavenly tiger god is no small amount of power. With one, their fighting strength would soar to an unbelievable degree." Elder Xiu's words left Jian Chen at a loss on what to do. Sighing, the elder spoke. "Jian Chen, the heavenly tiger god's life could be in danger at any moment. You must rear it as quickly as possible. It is only when its strength reaches a sufficient degree that danger might be mitigated." "Elder Xiu, could there be some other secret in this matter?" Jian Chen asked. The elder didn't respond to Jian Chen's question and merely replied, "Jian Chen, you should go. Remember, raise the heavenly tiger god as soon as possible." Finally, there was a single crack in the normally impassive tone. Jian Chen looked at the elder with a curious eye for some time. Finally sighing, Jian Chen took the cub and left the room with doubt still in his eyes. "For Elder Xiu to want me to raise the tiger cub as fast as possible, it seems that there is still something I don't know. Did Rum Guinness not tell me, or is this something even she doesn't know about?" After Jian Chen left, Elder Xiu took out a blood-red token and handed it to Xiu Mi. "Xiu Mi, take this spirit token and go straight to the Bloodsword sect. Tell the entire intelligence organization to mobilize everyone. Watch closely for anything that happens, and if there is any extremely strong experts that appear within the Tianyuan continent, report to me straight away." "Father, didn't you say that you would never use the Bloodsword sect?" "Why are you?" Xiu Mi asked with a startled look. "The situation has become far too grave. Don't ask any questions and take my token to the Bloodsword sect straight away." Elder Xiu interjected solemnly. His expression was dark and no longer looked like a simple farmer. Right now, he looked more like the valiant hero giving command to his entire army. "Yes, your child will go now." Xiu Mi didn't speak anymore and flew away with the token. After Xiu Mi had left, the elder sighed before walking to his bed. "They are growing far too bold if they would dare to kill even a heavenly tiger god. When the time comes and the heavenly tiger cub fully matures, their judgment will come. But they will try and infiltrate the human world in order to assassinate it soon enough. Forget it, it has nothing to do with me. If they truly come, then some other family will come to protect it." After leaving the elder's room, Jian Chen took the cub to his own room to rest. Then placing the cub on his bed, he began to caress the cub's ears and head. "Mr. RRR." Closing its eyes in comfortable bliss, the tiger cub was fully content with being treated to Jian Chen's care. Right now in its heart, it was very partial to Jian Chen. Looking at the obedient tiger cub, Jian Chen took out several of the 1,000-year ginseng from within his space ring. "Little white tiger, take this and eat it, this way, you'll grow up faster." The little tiger sniffed at the item offered to him curiously. Upon sniffing the sweet fragrance, its eyes widened before purring happily and taking the items into its mouth, relishing the meal. After eating several stalks of the 1,000-year ginseng, the tiger cub had finally finished eating. Closing its eyes once more, it began to sleep on top of the bed. Jian Chen knew that the cub was currently in the process of absorbing the spiritual qi in from its meal. Not wanting to bother the tiger, Jian Chen climbed onto the bed himself and began to drink the 100-grass wine given to him by the Ape King. The 1,000-year-old 100-grass wine had a great effect in helping a person's mind. After Jian Chen had finished off some of it, he closed his eyes in pure bliss as his soul enjoyed the pleasurable feeling. Feeling an azure light soar up from his dantian into his mind, Jian Chen felt his mind suddenly explode with excitement. Even the sword spirits were feeling the benefits. With Jian Chen's mind soaring in strength, his omnipresence ability was also increasing by leaps and bounds. Right now, with his soul undergoing improvement, Jian Chen felt as if he was being baptized and transcending to becoming an immortal. Chapter 386, Recovery of the Sword Spirits. A moment later, Jian Chen awoke from the comfortable state he was in only to feel himself many times stronger than before. Without delay, Jian Chen grabbed the bottle and began to chug it. This time, Jian Chen swallowed a large amount of the wine, finishing off a good amount of it quickly. Soon after the last drop had been swallowed, he began to relish in the comfortable feeling once more. 2 hours later, Jian Chen had finally absorbed the rest of the wine. At this moment, Jian Chen's ability with his thoughts had increased by another third. His omnipresence now allowed him to spread his senses to at least 13 kilometers. Jian Chen was incomparably happy. Jian Chen would have never believed that such a feat could be accomplished in such a short amount of time with his strength boosted and even his body had been affected. This 100-grass wine is truly a blessed item. Jian Chen sighed in admiration before drinking even more of the bottle. In a flash, the wine bottle given to him by the Ape King only had a small portion left. Carefully sampling it, Jian Chen closed his eyes and began to allow his mind to strengthen. The vital energy within the 100-grass wine continued to swirl around Jian Chen's dantian before quickly dissipating. The azure qi from the wine quickly soared up into Jian Chen's head before entering Jian Chen's consciousness. Within his consciousness, the sword spirits that were revolving around the multicolored stone pulsated with happiness as the light coming from them began to flicker. When the azure qi ascended into Jian Chen's consciousness, the spirit that Jian Chen shared with the sword spirits benefited greatly. The weakened soul of the sword spirits began to grow stronger with the light around them growing richer in concentration. After an unknown amount of time, the 100-grass wine had been completely absorbed by Jian Chen and his spirit felt complete bliss radiating through it. Suddenly, Jian Chen felt a tremendous change that he had never felt before. Without even spreading his presence, he was able to detect the wind blowing on the grass 100 meters away. At this moment, Jian Chen realized that his spirit had harmonized with the world. Without even needing to plan carefully, he had already entered a state of harmony with the world. He was able to clearly sense everything within 100 meters, almost like he could control everything. It was as if this area was his domain. Spreading out his omnipresence, Jian Chen's senses had instantly covered the valley. All of the villagers currently working out in the fields could be seen like a painting within Jian Chen's mind. Despite the actual distance between them, Jian Chen could see their every movements down to the finest detail. All of the villagers had been taught how to cultivate by Xiaomi, so they had all been able to cultivate to a certain degree. Although the strongest ones weren't even a great saint master, the good majority of them were saints or just great saints. Some didn't care at all about cultivating and thus hadn't even condensed their saint force to form a saint weapon yet. Following that, Jian Chen spread his presence out to the farming elder Xiao. Immediately, he could feel that elder Xiao was not a person, but rather the entire world fused into a person. Even as he brandished the hoe over and over again, all he could sense in elder Xiao was the immeasurable amount of profound mysteries of the world. Jian Chen's omnipresence continued to spread until it reached 15 kilometers before he had finally hit his limit. After drinking the 100-grass wine, Jian Chen's mind had improved by leaps and bounds. To him, this was certainly something to celebrate over. Master, Master, suddenly deep within Jian Chen's mind, he could hear a faint voice. Soon after, he felt just where the voice was coming from and was instantly shocked. Master, I can finally communicate with you. It was just then that Jian Chen could heard the inexplicable joy in the voice. You're the azure and violet sword spirits? Jian Chen spoke with a bit of a stammer. Master, I am Ziying, you may call me Xiao Zi. Spoke the Ziying sword spirit. Its voice sounded rather masculine and youthful. Master, I am Qingsua, you may call me Xiao Qing. Suddenly, another soft voice could be heard, this one was as pleasant sounding as a skylark. Jian Chen couldn't help but submerge himself into his consciousness. At that moment within the chaotic space of his mind, the multicolored stone could no longer be seen floating around. In its place were two strange people, both were around the age of 2 while one was a handsome male, the other was a beautiful female that complemented the male perfectly. The male had violet hair that seemed to droop all the way down to his chest. He wore a classic violet changpao and had eyes that glowed with a curious violet shade. The female wore an azure cheongsam that suited her long azure hair quite nicely. Her appearance was unrivaled and her azure eyes would cause any male to choke up. Jian Chen's chest began to heave and his tongue started to stop working as he looked at the golden couple. It was finally with a stammer that he spoke. You too, are you two the sword spirits? Yes, master. I am Ziying, she is Qingsua. The violet-robed man spoke with a smile. Jian Chen was speechless. He knew about the situation regarding the sword spirits, but he still found it hard to believe that the sword spirits would unexpectedly gain a human form within his consciousness. After a moment, Jian Chen sucked in his breath and attempted to calm himself once more. Staring at the sword spirits, he spoke, I didn't think that we would meet in such a manner. Has your energy been fully recovered? Ziying went silent for a moment before shaking his head. Master, we are still very weak, it is only because of the 100 grass wine that we were able to recover enough strength to take on physical forms and talk. Call me Jian Chen, not master. I am no master to you, we can just be fellow friends. Jian Chen grimaced at the word, master. Master, when we entered your body, we submitted to you. You are the master of Ziying and Qingsua. Qingsua spoke with a pleasant sound. Qingsua's words had caused Jian Chen to think back to when he had originally died. It was after that moment that he was born in such an unfamiliar world. That's right, I can still remember when I died. Was it because of you two that I was reincarnated into this world? Hearing this, Qingsua and Ziying both looked at each other in silence before Ziying opened his mouth. Master, at that time it was indeed Qingsua and I that brought you to this planet. In the previous planet, you had suffered a tremendous wound and the qi of the world began to escape your body. If that continued, then you wouldn't have been able to make any improvements, at the very most, you would never reach the strength of a heaven saint master of this world. Because of that, Qingsua and I took you from that planet, but when we entered the crack in space, the both of us suffered tremendous damages. With not much strength remaining, we were unable to deliver you to where we intended and thus we were only able to relocate you to a planet that was just stronger than your original world. So it really was because of you too. Jian Chen muttered. In truth, when he found out about the existence of the two sword spirits, he had already came to such a conclusion as a guess. Master, are you going to blame Ziying and Qingsua? Qingsua spoke with a timid voice. With a cordial smile, Jian Chen replied, if it weren't for you two, then I wouldn't have been able to experience such a magical world or come across such a large amount of strength. You've allowed me to grow strong and expand my world. I don't even have enough time to say all of my thanks, so what reason would I have to blame you two? After his reply, Qingsua immediately sighed in relief. Continuing to speak, Jian Chen said, what should we do so that you can recover as soon as you can? Master, we cannot recover to our full strength in this world. The qi of this world is far too weak, at the very best, we would be able to recover a small amount of it. Ziying said. Although he had heard what Ziying had said, Jian Chen still didn't quite understand. Since he was prioritizing the recovery of the sword spirits, he didn't pay any more attention to what he said. Then what could we do to recover your health for now? Ziying pointed at the multicolored stone floating some distance away. Master, this multicolored immortal crystal is the only thing that can help us for now. Chapter 387, Chaotic Force. Now that the azure and violet sword spirits had taken on human form and were capable of speech, Jian Chen could communicate with them with ease. It was no longer as difficult as before where they needed to use telepathy. Jian Chen asked many questions that he hadn't understood and began to clear up the problems he had. At the very least, the most important thing he learned was that the sword spirits had been responsible for bringing him to this world. Ah, Qingsua, Ziying, is there any chance of me being able to cultivate with Saint Force anymore? Jian Chen asked quickly. Losing his Saint Force had left him unable to use his illusionary flash or the unbelievably fast sword skills that he was renowned for, so this caused him no small amount of unwillingness. The two sword spirits gave each other a look before looking at Jian Chen hesitantly. For a quick moment of silence, Ziying finally said, Master, using a special method, you would be able to continue cultivating with Saint Force. However, the Saint Force of this world is far too weak. Too weak? Jian Chen asked in disbelief. Ziying nodded his head. Yes, Master. This world's Saint Force is far too weak, so I recommend that you do not restart your cultivation. He stopped talking for a moment before continuing to speak before Jian Chen could. Master, with Qingsua and I combined together, we could help you cultivate the chaotic force. Cultivate chaotic force? Is this chaotic force even stronger? Jian Chen asked with doubt. Ziying nodded his head. Yes, Master. Chaotic force is the strongest of energy. Then how do I cultivate chaotic force? Jian Chen asked with some eagerness. He couldn't allow for such a strong opportunity to run by him. Master, Qingsua and I were born from chaos itself. Our yin and yang bodies were evolved from the chaotic force, and as long as Qingsua and I are combined, then we can extract chaotic force from any energy in the world. Ziying spoke with some satisfaction as if being able to cultivate chaotic force was an extremely terrific ability. The azure-robed Qingsua opened up her mouth to speak. Master, refining chaotic force requires a tremendous amount of world qi. It would take 10 years to refine even the smallest amount of chaotic force from the small amount of world qi here. Master, the ruler armaments in your hands contain a massive amount of energy. Ziying and Qingsua can use that energy to refine into chaotic force. Upon hearing this, Jian Chen was beyond pleased. The ruler armaments were next to useless for him since he couldn't use their power, making them two pieces of garbage. With the seal of Treasure Mountain on his body, he also had to worry about the Sure family using their special method to find him, which was a shame since Jian Chen had no idea how to deal with that. Right now, the violet and azure sword spirits could relieve him of a major headache by refining the energy within the weapons into chaotic force. This would then improve his strength, which was something he definitely agreed with. No problem, the Duanyan sword and the seal of Treasure Mountain I hand over to you then. When will you be able to refine them into chaotic force? Jian Chen asked a little impatiently. Seeing the impatient look on Jian Chen's face, Ziying and Qingsua began to smile. Master, we can refine the chaotic force whenever you wish. However, because the world qi in this world is quite weak, refining the chaotic force will use up a huge volume of qi. This will make Master's future cultivation even harder. No worries, if worst comes to worst, I'll find even more ruler armaments to take. Jian Chen waved his hands without concern. If you wish, then Master, if you could please hand over the ruler armaments. Ziying and Qingsua will refine the chaotic force for you. Qingsua spoke. Retreating from his mind space, Jian Chen grabbed both the Duanyan sword and the seal of Treasure Mountain before thinking to himself, Ziying, Qingsua, what is the next step? As soon as he thought of the words, Jian Chen felt his mind tremble for a moment before Ziying and Qingsua disappeared from his mind. In the next moment, they had left his mind's space and appeared above his head. Right now the two looked like two weak glows of light and mist in human form, but their facial features could not be seen. Lifting his hand, a wave of mysterious energy began to raise out from the seal of Treasure Mountain, floating towards Ziying. It flew up from Jian Chen's hand to levitate over his head to where Ziying and Qingguo were floating. Ziying and Qingsua both closed their eyes and lifted out their arms. A faint glow of azure and violet could be seen from their hands before enveloping the seal of Treasure Mountain, spinning it in the same shape of the yin-yang symbol. 2 hours later, the seal of Treasure Mountain had been completely refined and transformed into an extremely pure, but powerful essence that rippled within the hands of Ziying and Qingsua. However, Ziying didn't stop the process there and began to use his origin energy to hammer it. This went on for another hour, causing the energy to turn gray in color like a ball of smoke. Not only was it faint in color, there was an indescribable air to it. Ziying and Qingsua both raised their hands, causing the gray gas to enter Jian Chen's body before resting within his dantian. Master, quick! Use the Azulite Sword Law and transform this chaotic force into your own power. Ziying and Qingsua both spoke in synchronism. Without delay, Jian Chen began to do as told. This process only took up 4 hours of Jian Chen's time. After those 4 hours, Jian Chen had successfully transformed the chaotic force into his own energy. When he looked at the wisp-like energy within his dantian, he couldn't help but ask, Ziying, Qingsua, is this really chaotic force? Yes, Master. This is chaotic force in its initial stage. Ziying spoke. Hearing this, Jian Chen was confused. The initial stage of chaotic force? What does that mean? Ziying looked a little embarrassed, but he didn't say anything else. Qingsua began to smile as if trying to apologize for him. Master, this is the weakest amount of chaotic force. The true power found within chaotic force cannot be recreated just yet because the amount of energy in these ruler armaments is still far too weak, so the true chaotic force cannot be attained. Ah, I understand now. Jian Chen spoke with clarity. However, he still only knew some basics regarding the chaotic force. A ruler armament was created after the energy from a 9th-layer Heaven Saint Master crystallized, but he didn't think that the overwhelming power from such an item would result in such a tiny amount of chaotic force. From this, Jian Chen couldn't even possibly imagine just how strong the chaotic force would be. Master, the cultivation methods of this continent do not suit the cultivation methods of the chaotic force. In the future, you will only be able to cultivate using the Azulite Sword Law. The Azulite Sword Law were actually a high-leveled cultivation method written by a deity. Written inside are ways to cultivate using the world chi of any world and convert it into chaotic force. Ziying spoke. Cultivation methods were special methods on absorbing and refining energy to become one's own strength. The Azulite Sword Law was truly an extremely mysterious cultivation method that worked in any situation to transform any energy into chaotic force. Nodding his head, Jian Chen felt his heart sigh in admiration. He didn't think that the Azulite Sword Law would have such a purpose. Master, but, Ziying opened his mouth once more before hesitation overcame him as if he didn't know whether or not he should tell him. But what? Qingsua blinked rapidly for a moment as she hesitated before speaking with her light voice. Master, the Azulite Sword Law has 3 volumes. You have the first volume, but not the other 2. What? Jian Chen cried out, unable to contain his shock. What could we do about the other 2 volumes then? Ziying and Qingsua both looked at each other briefly, as if hesitating, before Qingsua spoke. Master, in truth, the first volume is only enough for you to cultivate chaotic force. The other 2 volumes are still a long ways away from you. Ziying piped up next. Yes, Master, there is no need for you to look for the other 2 volumes at the moment. 1 is enough for now. Wait until you have more strength, then the other 2 volumes will be attainable. Furthermore, chaotic force is far too tyrannic. Master, if you wish to cultivate chaotic force in the future, then you must have a chaotic body refined as well. Only a chaotic body will be able to withstand the chaotic force. Otherwise, if Master were to try and use the chaotic force, it would cause a tremendous amount of damage. What? Cultivating chaotic force requires a chaotic body. How does one cultivate that? Jian Qin asked the two. He hadn't thought that it would be so complicated. Master, refining the chaotic body is explained within the Azulite Sword laws. Ziying replied. With that, Jian Qin asked a single question in surprise, so it does not require a large amount of chaotic force? It does require a large amount of chaotic force, but Master doesn't need to worry about that now. Ziying spoke carefully. He didn't know just how Jian Qin would react to this. Jian Qin almost felt dizzy from this conversation, but he wasn't very disappointed. Taking in a long deep breath, he began to mutter, I just knew there wasn't such a thing as a free meal in this world. I didn't think that the chaotic force would be this troublesome. A ruler armament had only a sliver of chaotic force, and a large amount of chaotic force is required to refine the chaotic body. Good heavens, where would I go to find such a large concentration of this energy? Jian Qin didn't quite know if he was happy or sad about this entire situation. Although he had come across a great change within his body, his path would be a long and narrow one for now. Seeing Jian Qin's emotions, Qingsua couldn't hold back her silence and began to console him, Master, do not be so discouraged. There is plenty of time in the future, and although the path set out for you is long and hard, you will one day have both the chaotic body and chaotic force. Jian Qin quickly calmed down after she spoke. He knew all too well that having a great benefit would require a great price. There was no such thing as a free meal, and there was no such thing as a prize without a price. If one wanted a large amount of power, they had to be ready to pay a large price for it. Forget it, a step is still a step. Ziying, Qingsua, let's continue with the Duanyin sword. This item has no use to me and puts me in harm's way. There's no way to tell whether or not the Jetta clan or Shi family will try to track us, so there is no benefit in their prolonged existence. Beads of sweat continued to drip down his face in large concentration, and his normally handsome face had twisted up from all of the pain with the occasional muscle spasms. Finally, a muffled sound of pain escaped from Jian Qin's throat. He could no longer hold back the intensity of the pain as it had already far surpassed his pain tolerance 1,000 times over. The intense feeling of pain tormented his nerves and mind, even he could not withstand it and finally fainted from the pain. Ah, Master, just why would you use the chaotic force to temper your body now? Your body as it is not yet adequate, this would only serve to make you suffer. Master, you must endure this. Suddenly, Qingsua's voice suddenly called out in a hurried manner. Master, you must stay determined. Although the chaotic force is destroying your body, it is also recreating it. After this one time, the next few times will be easier to manage. Ziying's voice could be heard as well. Gritting his teeth in pain, Jian Qin couldn't even say a word in response because of the pain. Not even a single syllable could be uttered coherently. As the tiny wisp of chaotic force continued to travel through his body, Jian Qin felt as if miniature explosions were happening all throughout his entire body. The pain caused his muscles to break and blood to come out of his pores, dyeing his entire body red. In a flash, the chaotic force had spread throughout every part of his body, and he had already lost 1/3 of his energy. Sighing, Jian Qin prepared to use the Radiant Saint Force to heal his body when Ziying's voice popped up in his mind, Master, don't stop yet. Clenching his teeth, he gave up the idea of resting and continued to try and withstand the circulation of the chaotic force through his body. After a while, the pain in Jian Qin's body began to alleviate as the chaotic force made its third circulation around his body before disappearing. Seemingly as if he had lost all his energy, Jian Qin fell down to the bed below as if he was a pile of mud. Master, you've managed to take the first step. After experiencing pain for the first time, you will have an easier time cultivating the chaotic force in the future. Naturally, the time the chaotic force was in your body will not be as intense as before. Ziying and Qingsua's voice both spoke with some joy. But Jian Chen was powerless to respond. Laying back on the bed, he thought about the pain he had just experienced with some terror. This pain was something that he couldn't possibly endure again. After resting for a moment to regain some energy, he began to use the radiant saint force within the world to treat his wounds. By now Jian Chen's mind ability was extraordinarily strong. His ability to control the radiant saint force was far better than before, so the entire room basked in the milky white glow. However, since it was daytime, the light wasn't all too obvious and would escape any regular person's notice. This time, Jian Chen had only spent 2 hours before his body was fully recovered, since the healing effect was far stronger than before. Jian Chen stood up from his bed and inspected his body. This time, he could feel that his body was definitely stronger than before, but however much stronger he was now, he didn't know. Noticing that his body and clothes were drenched in blood, Jian Chen took out a towel and wiped himself clean before putting on a new pair of white robes and leaving the room. Right now it was already noon. Spreading out his senses, Jian Chen quickly found out where little Fatty was and soared over to him. Because Jian Chen was flying toward little Fatty in the direction he was facing, the Fatty quickly noticed Jian Chen. Stopping what he was doing, little Fatty looked at Jian Chen respectfully. Jian Chen, flying in the air must be great, huh? Smiling, Jian Chen replied, little Fatty, you have an amazing father and grandfather. I believe that you will be able to reach the Heaven Saint Master realm soon enough. It's far too early to see. I heard my father say that he was 56 years old when he became a Heaven Saint Master. I'm only 21 years old, that means I've still 30 years to go. Little Fatty spoke somewhat subdued. He was still only a primary Great Saint Master that had only made the breakthrough a month ago. However, being a Great Saint Master at the age of 21 was the sign of a genius within the Tianyuan continent. Furthermore, he had done so by painstakingly cultivating by himself without any other resources. Slapping little Fatty's shoulder, he consoled him, little Fatty, don't be discouraged. Your current prowess is already great. In the outside world, the amount of people that reach the Great Saint Master realm at your age can be counted on your fingers. At the very mention of the outside world, little Fatty's eyes lit up straight away. His eyes stared into Jian Chen as he asked, really? Jian Chen, then I would be considered amazing in the outside world? That's... Little Fatty, I'll tell you about that later. I came to find you for your help. Jian Chen quickly avoided the subject. What's the problem? Speak, Jian Chen, I'll definitely help you. Little Fatty immediately stood straight up and pledged. Taking a few steps back, Jian Chen spoke honestly, little Fatty, use your saint weapon to strike me. Wah, attack you? Little Fatty was stunned at the request. That's right. Little Fatty, even if you strike me, you don't have to worry since it won't do much damage. Jian Chen spoke seriously. Little Fatty began to hesitate for a moment, but when he thought about how Jian Chen was a Heaven Saint Master, his heart began to calm down. Fine then, but you can't hit me. I'm not a match for you by any means. With that, little Fatty's saint weapon appeared in his hand in the form of a pitch-black battle-axe. Seeing this, Jian Chen looked at little Fatty with some surprise. Little Fatty, don't tell me you have a dark attributed saint force? He nodded his head, that's right. My father told me that the dark attribute is a rarely seen thing, but my grandfather has the same attribute as well. Elder Xiu is also a dark attribute cultivator. Jian Chen thought, but he was quickly cut out from his thoughts as little Fatty spoke. Jian Chen, be careful, I'm going to strike. Little Fatty's battle-axe began to glow a dangerous dark color before he charged straight for Jian Chen. Because little Fatty was under the misunderstanding that Jian Chen had wanted to test his own strength, he didn't hold back his strength at all and swung his axe. There was only a flash of dark light as little Fatty's axe ripped through the sky and smashed against Jian Chen's shoulder. The violent amount of saint force rippled through his saint weapon before ripping apart Jian Chen's clothes at the shoulders, revealing the pale white skin underneath. Seeing how Jian Chen hadn't dodged at all and received the full blunt of the attack, little Fatty's face grew white as he cried, "Jian Chen, why didn't you dodge?" In the next moment, his eyes widened as he looked on in disbelief. That was because he had noticed that Jian Chen had received no damage at all despite putting up no defense. At the very most, there was a faint impression on his shoulder. How is that possible? Am I going blind or something? Little Fatty couldn't believe his eyes. He had swung with all of his might, but his strike hadn't even managed to break the skin. Ha 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 ha, seeing just how he had taken no damage at all, Jian Chen began to laugh with a great smile. His heart had soared with joy at this. A chaotic body was extremely strong. His body had become extremely strong after tempering it with just a single wisp of chaotic force. If he continued to temper his body like this, an Earth Saint Master or even a Heaven Saint Master would not be able to harm him. Chapter 389, The Road Home. Jian Chen, your body, just how is it so strong? Are you made of iron or something? Little Fatty's eyes grew wide as he looked at the small mark on Jian Chen's body. Taking out a new robe from his space ring, Jian Chen laughed. Being made of iron would be a stretch, but my body is definitely stronger than an ordinary person. There was some fascination to little Fatty's eyes as he spoke. How did you strengthen it? It's like you transformed your body. Laughing, Jian Chen didn't give an answer. Looking at the still unfinished field, Jian Chen asked, Little Fatty, do you need my help? Yes, of course. My dad and grandfather went to plant corn and I'm left with all the vegetables here. You came here just in time. With 2 people, it'll take no time at all to finish the rest of the planting. Little Fatty spoke very casually with Jian Chen and handed several seeds to him. I'll plant on this side, you go to that side. With the 2 of us working, we'll be able to finish this before dinner. Planting the seeds with Little Fatty, Jian Chen spoke, Little Fatty, it is very possible that I will be leaving this place soon. Little Fatty's hand shook for a brief moment before he continued to silently work in the fields. Not too long after, he finally uttered a single sentence, I knew that life here wouldn't work out for you. Sooner or later, you would have left for the outside world. Letting out a long breath of air, Jian Chen spoke, Little Fatty, I will talk to your grandfather tonight and have him consent to you being able to explore the outside world. You staying here forever is no suitable way of living. With your talent, staying here would just bury it. Jian Chen, just what is the outside world like? Little Fatty stared at Jian Chen with a fixated gaze as he waited for an answer. He had grown up in this secluded village without ever leaving the valley. Any information he knew from the outside world had been learned from word of mouth. He had never once seen it for himself, not knowing just how large it was. The outside world is huge, tremendous even. There are many people with many wondrous things. At the same time, the world is also very cruel and complex. Little Fatty, when you see the outside world for yourself, you will come to understand. Jian Chen spoke. But, my grandfather would never let me leave. Little Fatty's face grew a little sad at that. I will talk with your grandfather tonight and try to convince him. Other than talking to his grandfather, Jian Chen had no other solution. Elder Xiao was a person with an immeasurable amount of power. Jian Chen had no wish to offend him. In a flash, the sun had begun to set to the west and the night began to overtake the skies. The bright red rays from the sunset could still be seen splashing across the sky as the chimneys in the village bellowed smoke into the air and danced in the wind. In a hurry, the 2 men quickly walked back home. After walking to their own rooms, Jian Chen quickly went into his room to check up on the tiger cub. Right now, the tiger cub was sleeping, as the heavenly resources it ate earlier had not yet finished being absorbed. Seeing how the tiger was safe and sound, Jian Chen left the room in relief before eating dinner with the rest of the family. However, there was one less pair of plates and chopsticks. Seeing this empty space, little Fatty asked, "Grandfather, where is father?" "Little Fatty, your father has some matters to take care of, eat your meal." Elder Shio smiled kindly with an affectionate gaze toward the fatty. "Got it." Little Fatty replied before growing slightly dark. He knew that with his father had gone to the outside world, the world that he himself yearned to go to. Jian Chen's eyes flickered over to Elder Shio for a moment as he hesitated. Then, he finally opened his mouth and spoke, "Elder Shio, have you never thought about little Fatty going out to gain some experience?" As he spoke, Jian Chen's eyes stared heavily at Elder Shio. As expected, the elder's face began to change in color, but Jian Chen quickly spoke up before Elder Shio could reply, "Elder Shio, allowing little Fatty to live in this village his entire life would be detrimental to him. If he lives here for his entire life, little Fatty will miss out on the many pleasures in life. Living here would not truly be growing up. If he doesn't experience the wind and rain of the outside world, he won't experience a true growth. I'm also sure you know of little Fatty's dislike for this life. If you care for little Fatty's growth, you shouldn't keep him forever locked up in this village. This is no way to become an adult. In the end, this would only serve to harm him instead of helping." Hearing this, the elder went quiet for a moment. He had traveled the continent himself for many years and experienced many things, so he could understand little Fatty's desire perfectly clear. The problem was that he truly did not wish for little Fatty to venture out into the outside world. With his countless experiences, he had seen straight through the very essence of the world, and now he only desired for little Fatty to live safely within the valley. If he stayed in this valley, then little Fatty would stay as pure and innocent as snow without being polluted by the mortal world. Jian Chen continued to fire off reason after reason for the elder to hear for the sake of allowing little Fatty to leave the valley. Racking his mind for any reason imaginable, Jian Chen tried his best to use them all as an argument. As if Jian Chen had addressed each of Elder Shio's worries, he was completely silent throughout the meal and ate in a stiff-like movement. "Grandfather, it wouldn't be right to grow up without seeing the outside world at least once. I really wish to go out just once." Little Fatty looked at his grandfather almost pathetically. "Father, Jian Chen speaks the truth. I know that you have reached a realm that we cannot even dream of seeing and seen things we have not seen, but little Fatty is an inexperienced great saint master who has not experienced many things. He has no idea what goes on in the outside world, and the things you've seen, he has not. If he does not go travel the world, then he will never mature as an adult. Father, if you truly look out for little Fatty's best interests, let him experience the world for himself and increase his knowledge. If he comes across some trouble in the future, he must learn to face it with his own power." Little Fatty's mother spoke out earnestly with a kind yet naturally refined voice. Her words were filled with the bearings of a refined woman, one that came from a wealthy family. At Jian Chen's and little Fatty's mother's twin-prong assault, Elder Shio finally let out a long sigh. Forget it, forget it. Your words are not without flaws. I was stubborn for far too long. Little Fatty, if you truly wish to explore the outside world, your grandfather will not stop you." "Really? You'll really let me explore the outside world?" Little Fatty was overjoyed. Seeing the look of pure joy on little Fatty's face, Elder Shio couldn't help but sigh to himself mentally. Looking into his heart, he concluded that when he made little Fatty stay here, it was the wrong choice of action. Placing another mouthful of food into his mouth, Elder Shio said, "Little Fatty, if you want to leave, then your grandfather won't stop you, but you must have the strength of an Earth Saint Master before you can go." "All right. Father, I'll work hard at cultivating and make the breakthrough to become an Earth Saint Master." Little Fatty was not discouraged at all. Seeing how happy little Fatty was, even his mother couldn't help but let out a smile as well. 3 days quickly went by peacefully. On the third day, Jian Chen and little Fatty were both cutting down timber in order to rebuild the burned-down house Jian Chen was in. This was the promise that Jian Chen had made. After completing the house, Jian Chen had bid farewell after promising that the two would meet a year from now at this spot. When little Fatty becomes an Earth Saint Master, they would leave together. Until then, Jian Chen would leave with the tiger cub. Before he left, however, Jian Chen held a space ring. This was given to him by Elder Xiao and contained many of the heavenly resources from the nearby mountain ranges. For the sake of the tiger cub, these resources were given to Jian Chen. With the tiger cub, Jian Chen flew far away from the valley without stopping so that he could find a space gate to return to the Jessen Kingdom. The distance from here to the Jessen Kingdom was far too wide. Even if Jian Chen were to fly the entire distance without stopping, it would take a tremendous amount of time and energy. So, the only solution was to use a space gate. Unfortunately, space gates were exceedingly rare throughout the Tianyuan continent. Although there was a space gate in Mercenary City, he wasn't able to use that one. Other than Mercenary City, however, Jian Chen had no idea where the closest space gate could be. The tiger cub suddenly began to growl, breaking Jian Chen out of his thoughts. Looking down, he could only see the cub staring off in the distance at some large piece of land while both of its paws swung wildly in midair. Jian Chen was unable to figure out just what the cub was trying to do or what it was thinking about. The tiger cub's rear paws pressed against Jian Chen's chest as its front two paws scratched in the direction of the forest. The wings on its back began to unfold almost as if it was about to fly out from Jian Chen's embrace. Holding the cub tightly, Jian Chen gently caressed its head before following the cub's stare and landing on a nearby tree branch. Transitioning to the ground, the cub leaped down and began to break out into a wild run towards several trees that were hundreds of meters tall. When Jian Chen arrived, he couldn't help but to laugh out loud. It turns out that this place was filled with spirit mushrooms. They were purple in color and weren't all too large. At the very most, they were 20 centimeters tall and 10 centimeters wide. But when the tiger cub saw them, its mouth began to water, allowing Jian Chen to realize these were heavenly resources. Although the size and age of a spirit mushroom was generally small and young, not every heavenly resource needed to be old in age or big in shape. Carefully picking some of the spirit mushrooms, he gathered some for the impatient tiger cub and began to feed them to the cub, who purred affectionately. "Come and eat some." Jian Chen laughed as he fed them one by one into the cub's jaws. With a cheerful purr, the cub continued to swallow the mushrooms before quickly going into hibernation to absorb their energy. Chapter 390, Qinhuang Kingdom. The road was peaceful once more. Jian Chen never met another flying magical beast as he flew past the mountain ranges. Once past the mountain ranges, Jian Chen was flying 1,000 meters in the air where the cold winds constantly blew against his body. His white robes fluttered in the wind with a flapping sound. His left hand held the white tiger cub, and his right hand held a map he had gotten from his space ring. This map contained details of the surrounding area to a good extent, but the Jessen Kingdom was still too far away, so Jian Chen couldn't use the map to travel there. Jian Chen's eyes scoured the map as he looked at all of the nearby kingdoms in the area around Mercenary City. For a brief moment, his eyes looked back to Mercenary City and gave a small sigh before looking elsewhere. He knew that he had more than enough strength to help the Jessen Kingdom in its time of need, but because he had no idea on the current circumstances of the kingdom, he needed to get back there as soon as possible. If he waited too long, then the Jessen Kingdom would be overrun and his family exterminated. To Jian Chen, the latter was something he was not willing to see nor experience. So, his only goal was to find a space gate and then use it to travel to the Jessen Kingdom in the fastest way possible. Suddenly, the kingdom, Qinhuang, popped up in Jian Chen's eyes. Taking a look, Jian Chen's eyes began to sparkle as he quickly thought back to the friend he made, Qin Ji, during the gathering of the mercenaries. His hands began to shake as he took out the piece of jade from his space ring. On the jade piece, there was the single word for Qin engraved on it. This was the gift that Qin Ji had given to him before the two had parted. Looking at the considerably expensive piece of jade in his hands, Jian Chen began to hum as he thought to himself, Qin Ji has a ruler armament and a barrier protecting him. That would mean the Qinghuang kingdom is quite strong, perhaps they would have a space gate. Jian Chen suddenly came to a stop in midair as he hesitated. With a final conclusion, he started to fly toward the Qinghuang kingdom. Whether or not the kingdom had a space gate, he would give it a try. The Qinghuang kingdom was only 100,000 meters north of Mercenary City, making the distance from where he was to the kingdom approximately 120,000 kilometers. If he wanted to go there, it would take a considerable amount of time. Using the wind elements in the world to help speed him up, Jian Chen began to travel at a pace that was relatively slower than the time when he had used the Heaven's Stolen Fortune and the Illusionary Flash combined. However, it still took him 2 hours in order to travel 1,500 kilometers. In this manner, 24 hours would be enough for him to travel nearly 20,000 kilometers. In 7 days, Jian Chen had finally arrived at the border of the Qinghuang kingdom. These 7 days had been taxing for Jian Chen. He had very few breaks and the tiger cub constantly ate the heavenly resources before falling asleep right after. However, the tiger cub was growing at a decent speed now. His body was already a meter long and already weighed close to 50 kilograms. This however made holding the cub to his chest very difficult. Moreover, the cub was already at the level of a Class 2 magical beast. Because of the cub's innate nature of being a heavenly tiger god, it could constantly devour the heavenly resources without a problem, unlike humans who used monster cores. After a while, a human would come across troubles that would shake their foundation and bring about major damages if they did not regulate their usage of monster cores, but this tiger did not have such a limitation. In front of him, there was a 100-meter-tall ancient wall that stretched beyond the lands like a long dragon, giving anyone the impression that they were looking at a mountain range instead. On top of the ancient gates was a gigantic board that said 3 words, Qinghuang Kingdom. This was the stronghold of the Qinghuang Kingdom. As he drew closer, the originally quiet stronghold began to buzz with activity. Floating 1,000 meters high in the air, he could see the ant-like people down below flowing in and out of the stronghold, trading their wares. Jian Chen didn't bother with going through the gates and instead flew overhead without bothering to hide himself either. Although his movements had not gone unnoticed by several soldiers, the soldiers did nothing to stop him. Instead, they continued to watch him fly by with envious looks. Heaven Saint Masters were individuals that commanded this privilege of being able to go as they pleased without being stopped. The Qinghuang Kingdom was extraordinarily large, 4 or 5 times larger than the Jessen Kingdom. After traveling for another 10,000 kilometers, he finally reached the capital city, Qinghuang City. This was a king's city, a city that was second in rank compared to 7 of the continent's capital cities, but its grandeur was great nonetheless. Flying into Qinghuang City, he drew close to the palace and descended onto the ground while holding the tiger cub. Together, the two continued inside. "Halt, what are you doing?" Several guards at the Great Saint Master level instantly moved forward to obstruct Jian Chen's path. Jian Chen flashed the jade piece and spoke, "I am looking for Qin Ji." "Outrageous, just how dare you call the third prince so casually?" One of the rearguards instantly rebuked. "Third prince?" At this, Jian Chen's heart skipped a beat. He had no idea that Qin Ji held such an illustrious position within the kingdom. When one of the vanguards heard Jian Chen call out Qin Ji's name, his eyes narrowed dangerously. However, when he saw Jian Chen hold up the jade piece, he started with a cry, "That is the Qinhuang jade given from His Majesty." "Brother Jian Chen, you were correct in coming to the Qinhuang Kingdom for a space gate. Aside from Mercenary City, Qinhuang City is the only one to have a space gate within 100,000 kilometers." Jian Chen was overjoyed to hear this. "Brother Qin Ji, then I must ask of you, would I be able to have you help me use the space gate?" Continuing to laugh, Qin Ji replied, "Brother Jian Chen, you needn't worry. Although the space gate within the Qinghuang Kingdom isn't open for foreigners, there are always exceptions to everything. Just let me talk to my father, it shouldn't be a problem." "Is that so? Then I'd like to thank Brother Qin Ji." Jian Chen looked relieved and exhilarated to hear that he would be able to use the space gate to return to the Jessen kingdom. Qin Ji placed another morsel of food from his chopsticks and began to chew with joy. Speaking with some food still in his mouth, Qin Ji spoke, "However, Brother Jian Chen, I suggest you wait 3 days before using the space gate to leave." "Why is that?" Jian Chen asked. "In 2 days of time, it will be my father's 50th birthday. That day will be extremely lively and many nobles from many clans will come to celebrate. As my friend, I hope that you would celebrate it with me." Chapter 391, Provocation. Jian Chen hadn't any desire to decline Qin Ji's request, so he agreed to it quite enthusiastically. As a result, Jian Chen came to live within the Qin Huang Palace with the lifestyle of an immortal, but this was not the lifestyle that Jian Chen was accustomed to. At night, he would sleep within one of the guest rooms with several armored guards and even some maids waiting outside. The first were to guard Jian Chen while the latter were to serve him. Even when he walked around the palace, several guards and maids would follow from behind. If it weren't for the fact that Jian Chen knew that all wealthy men had such a privileged life like this, he would have assumed that they were here to supervise him for any dangerous activity toward the palace. On the second day, Qin Ji had woken up Jian Chen early in the morning before taking him on a stroll around the palace. On the stroll, he pointed out many of the different types of scenery within the place. Jian Chen never brought the tiger cub with him since he didn't wish for the cub to be subjected to the eyes of a lord. So, to ensure that the cub was safe, he would feed it a large amount of heavenly resources and would wait for it to fall into a deep sleep before walking out. The palace was extraordinarily large, and even after walking for almost the entire day, they had only managed to travel 2/3 of it. Some of the remaining areas were forbidden to outsiders, however. In the meanwhile, Qin Ji had introduced Jian Chen to many different lords and the daughters of the nobles. Their ages weren't all that too far away from the two, but whenever Qin Ji introduced Jian Chen, he only said that Jian Chen was a friend made from a personal friendship. Thus, the lords gave Jian Chen contemptuous looks. Maintaining a look of resoluteness, Jian Chen said nothing. However, the illustrious daughters of the nobles oftentimes gave him strange looks, some of them even spoke to Jian Chen with a friendly manner and exposed their intent to be friends clearly. However, this newfound popularity of Jian Chen had earned the ire of even more nobles. The majority of them had already started to give Jian Chen envious and heated looks. Straight after Qin Ji and Jian Chen had split ways, many of the nobles had already ordered for someone to inquire about Jian Chen's identity and background. In the end, many of them couldn't help but sigh in relief as they heard that Jian Chen wasn't a part of any political power and was an unknown entity. In accordance to their guesses, even if Jian Chen had some type of background, the party behind him was far too inferior to be talked about in public. In the evening, Jian Chen had finished the daytime activities and returned to Qin Ji's palace to eat a meal. This was his personal abode and was suited with many different facilities for his every need. The Princess of Funan immediately raised a glass as she spoke to Jian Chen with a chivalrous tone. Following Situ Yan's example, Qin Shuang and Qin Yubing both raised their glasses as well as they toasted Jian Chen. Unwilling to shirk away from this, Jian Chen stood up and held up his own glass in response to the three princess' kind words. Touching cups with the there, he was just about to bring it up to his own mouth before a loud cry came out from outside. "Lord Xiaohan, you can't go in. Without the permission of the third prince, no one can enter the Flowing Clouds Palace. Lord Xiaohan, please don't make things difficult for us. Without the third prince's permission, you cannot enter this place, step aside." "Who do you think I am?" Visiting the third prince should warrant no notice. All of a sudden, a 25-year-old youth came bursting into the palace in a grandiose manner. He wore a magnificent cyan robe and his eyebrows were creased into a fierce state, giving everyone the idea that he was the type to treat all those under the heavens as someone to be scorned. As he entered, 2 more armored soldiers came running in as an attempt to block him. But because of the high status of the youth, the two soldiers didn't dare use violence in order to stop him. "Third prince, please forgive us." The two soldiers cried out helplessly in forgiveness. Looking expressionlessly at the youth that had just ran in, he waved his hand at the two guards. "You two may leave." "Yes, third prince." The two cried out graciously before retreating away. Qin Ji looked at the youth hard and spoke, "What business do you have for you to just barge into my flowing clouds palace?" Laughing, Xiao Han cupped his hands in greeting. "Third prince, tomorrow is His Majesty's 50th birthday. I came here today to discuss of tomorrow's gift to him. If I have disturbed you, then please forgive me for my transgressions." Looking to the side at Qin Shuang, Qin Yubing, and the Princess of Funan, his expression grew flabbergasted as he cried, "Ah, the two princesses and the Princess of Funan are here too. How coincidental. Dear princesses, what might you three be doing here?" Xiao Han looked at the 4 cups being raised in the air, but a sight like this didn't require an idiot to figure out the situation. Xiao Han's eyes held an undisguised amount of envy, but he managed to let out a smile. "Dear princesses, could it be that you three are giving a toast to the third prince's friend?" Qin Shuang, Qin Yubing, and the Princess of Funan looked at him with a look of utter loathing as if they were all equally disgusted by him. Qin Yubing didn't even spare him another glance and turned back to Jian Chen with the cup raised. "Let us toast." Her voice was exceedingly gentle and would cause any male to feel happy to hear it. After her suggestion, Qin Shuang and the Princess of Funan raised their glasses up with a smile. At this sight, Xiao Han's fury burst with envy as he promptly shouted, "This cannot do. 3 princesses worth their weight of gold and all of illustrious backgrounds drinking wine with a stranger. Have you lost your identity?" Straight away, Qin Ji exploded with anger as well. His previously expressionless eyes grew icy cold as he thundered, "Xiao Han, what is the meaning of your words? Could it be that a friend of Qin Ji, is not worthy of drinking with these 3 princesses?" Giving an apologetic smile, he spoke with a moderate tone, "Third prince, please quell your anger. What I said is nothing but the truth. These 3 princesses have such an illustrious background, and while the friend of the third prince is no ordinary status, he is neither anyone with any special relations. Thus, it is inappropriate for them to drink with him." Chapter 392, Using chopsticks as weapons. Xiao Han's words caused Qin Ji's face to instantly grow dangerous. But before he could say anything, Qin Yubing spoke out toward Xiao Han with an icy glow, "Xiao Han, whomever we drink with is of no concern to you." "That's correct. Xiao Han, you are overstepping your boundaries. Whatever we wish to do has nothing to do with you," Qin Shuang said. "Xiao Han, you think too highly of yourself. If it were not for your grandfather, you wouldn't even be qualified to step within the Qinhuang Palace. You think that you are amazing, or terrific even so that even elder brother is below your station. Your grandfather has wasted all those magical panaceas, but you are only a great saint master. What a waste." The Princess of Funan lashed out verbally, not caring for Xiao Han's honor. Hearing this, Xiao Han's face began to grow darker and his eyes frosted over. Qin Shuang and Qin Yubing were both princesses of grace and beauty, women that he had constantly chased after. Once he had even announced his affection for the two, but he had been rejected without mercy. Xiao Han did not give up his pursuit because he believed that with his position within the Qinhuang kingdom, it was only a matter of time before he and one of the two would be engaged. Having his grandfather propose to His Majesty for this arranged marriage would not be too difficult. He had never thought that the 2 people he had always chased after would unexpectedly go with a stranger unknown to him and speak such unpleasant words for him to hear. To the boisterous noble, this was an unwashable insult. The Princess of Funan had especially spoke words that were as sharp as a sword before piercing into his heart. It was a deep insult to him, causing him to grow speechless and pale. Seeing how offended Xiao Han was, Qin Ji began to smile in delight as he spoke. "Xiao Han, right now my brother and the 3 princesses are eating a meal. I've already planned for my father's present, so there is no need to discuss it. You may leave. With that, Qin Ji looked outside, take Xiao Han back to his place. Immediately two maids came forward and courteously brought Xiao Han away from the palace. Lord Xiao Han, if you please. Xiao Han let out a violent snort of air as the anger within his heart combusted. All of his extreme anger and envy was forced straight upon Jian Chen's head and had already reached the highest point of anger. Good, good, good. Princess Funan, you say that I am not equal to the third prince. I, Xiao Han, recognize that. That is because compared to the heaven-gifted genius like the third prince, I am inferior, but let me ask you. Could that stranger right there be any more amazing? He has only his looks to fall upon. His status, his position, his power, where does he compare to against me? Qin Shuang, Qin Yubing and the Princess of Funan let out a small cry of alarm as they tried to move back to avoid the energy wave. With a snort, Jian Chen waved his hand. The chopstick from the table began to float up into the air with an azure and violet glow to it before shooting straight toward Xiao Han. Ah! Following a miserable cry of pain, the chopstick burrowed its way into Xiao Han's right arm to where the bone was, rendering mobility in it impossible. Wah, Jian Chen is quite amazing, too amazing, just too amazing. Jian Chen, how strong are you if you could use a single chopstick to beat a great Saint Master? Jian Chen, you absolutely must teach me. The three princesses all clapped their hands in adoration of Jian Chen, their eyes were already seeing stars. Seeing the wound on Xiao Han's body, Qin Ji had let out a sigh in relief. This was the man that the Shi family and the Jie clan had their young lords killed by. Because of that, he was worried that Jian Chen would have taken Xiao Han's life in a fit of anger. Take Xiao Han to treat his wounds. Qin Ji waved his hand for the two maids to take him. Xiao Han was unable to take the pain in his arm and could only stare poisonously at Jian Chen. Without another look back, he walked out from the palace, even his honor would not allow him to stay here. After Xiao Han had left, Jian Chen looked to Qin Ji, brother Qin Ji, just who is this Xiao Han? Qin Ji sat back down, Xiao Han's position is truly quite unique. Within the palace, there are very few that are equal to the stature of the princes. His grandfather is the imperial tutor and has an illustrious position as a result. His grandfather's status could rival even my father's. Xiao Han's father was also the imperial army's captain 5 years ago. One time when my father had been a target of a raid, it was Xiao Han's father who had taken the blow for an attempt on his life, causing his death. Because of this, my father has come to love Xiao Han dearly, causing his status to rise up to the rank of a prince. So that's the story. What realm has Xiao Han's grandfather reached? Jian Chen asked. Heaven Saint Master. He is a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Qin Ji spoke seriously. A genius that has reached the 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master realm. Jian Chen muttered with a gentle smile. After the meal, the three princesses finally parted paths with Jian Chen, allowing him to return to his own place to rest. Sitting on top of the bed to think, he knew that it would be the celebration of His Majesty's birthday. He didn't know just what type of present to give to a king. Aside from a heaven-tier battle skill, heavenly resources, and a Class 6 monster core, Jian Chen had essentially nothing to give. The heaven-tier battle skill was definitely not an item to be gifted, and a Class 6 monster core would not be an item worthy of being gifted to a king of the Qinhuang kingdom. At this moment, a light went off in Jian Chen's mind as his hand blurred, causing a small pill to appear in his hand. This was the second Class 8 Radiant Spirit pill given to him by Elder Shou. He wasn't too willing to part with it just yet, so he began to debate on what to do. But this Class 8 Radiant Spirit pill is the only item I could give. Jian Chen muttered. His Radiant Saint Force was far away from being equal to a Class 8 Radiant Saint Force. Plus, with his controlling method, it would be impossible for him to mass-produce them anyways. Chapter 393, Birthday Present. The next day, the birthday of the Qin Kingdom's king had officially begun. Jian Chen was woken up early by Qin Ji, and the two left together to congratulate him. The palace was especially lively today. Many influential lords and nobles came to personally congratulate the king on this happy occasion. All sorts of political leaders and major powers came, and in short, everyone was of some importance. The Qin Kingdom held a lot of power and was second only to the three great empires. Within the continent, the Qin Kingdom was already considered one of the highest powers. Thus, every single territory within the kingdom and even the subsiding powers bordering the kingdom had sent men with gifts in order to celebrate this happy occasion. If it were not a lord or princess, it was a prime minister that came. Even several imperial advisors had come to pay their respects. Directly walking toward the main palace hall, Jian Chen and Qin Ji both saw well over 1,000 people standing around. Each one wore gorgeous robes or were figures that were well known throughout the kingdom. A wave of maids could be seen walking around the place with small platters of food in order to serve the guests. "We greet the third prince. We greet the third prince." Upon seeing Qin Ji arrive, many of the people there began to cup their hands in salute with extremely respectful greetings. Greeting them all with a kind smile, Qin Ji responded amiably without any sense of arrogance. Jian Chen followed behind Qin Ji silently. He was perfectly content not being in the limelight and did not wish for the spotlight to be put onto him. The nobles within the palace naturally paid very little attention to him. The vast majority only believed that Jian Chen was an attendant to Qin Ji and didn't spare him a second glance. The other part of the crowd took a neutral stance, but some noticed that Jian Chen was not any ordinary person. He was neither servile or overbearing in nature and carried himself with a graceful manner. Despite his age, he walked with a steady step that even a mountain could not attest to. Some of the stronger men in the room could even tell there was a strong pressure coming from him, causing them to look on in shock. "Strange, why is it that I feel as if I've seen that man walking behind the third prince before? Just where did this feeling come from?" One of the more richly dressed men stared suspiciously at Jian Chen as he muttered to himself. He was not the only person to have this hunch. Several other men within the palace had this same exact suspicion. They felt that he was a stranger, but they still couldn't shake off this feeling. "Brother Jian Chen, feel free to go rest somewhere, I still have several people to greet." Qin Ji spoke apologetically toward Jian Chen. Today was the 50th birthday of his father, so the king could not greet any of the people himself. However, these men were all high-ranking people, some from the surrounding kingdoms. They couldn't be received by just anyone, so the children would have to take up the mantle. Even this was considered to be a good opportunity for the prince to get to know people. It was with that excuse that they could make a foundation for political support when the time came to fight for the throne. Jian Chen was neither a child nor an ignorant farmer from the thatched villages. He understood clearly just how important this gathering was for Qin Ji and did not argue. Taking a small snack to eat, he began to stroll to the closest corner of the room before enjoying the delicious-tasting pastries. Just then, a cyan-robed middle-aged man sat down right next to Jian Chen. Nodding with a smile toward the eating Jian Chen, he spoke, "Fellow brother, have we seen each other somewhere before?" Jian Chen lifted his head to look at the man. Seeing that the man was unfamiliar to him, he shook his head. "You must be mistaken. Perhaps I look like someone else." Still skeptical, the man nodded his head. "Perhaps so. My name is Zhuang, what might your name be?" Jian Chen laughed. "This one is just a nobody and not even a member of the Qin Kingdom. My name won't be recognizable by sire even if this one speaks of it." Jian Chen finished off the pastry and left to go get a new one. After Jian Chen had left, Zhuang narrowed his eyes in doubt. "An unknown nobody. Is that really the truth? Why do I feel that I've seen you from somewhere?" Even with his mutterings, he had been unable to think of an answer, so Zhuang had no other choice but to leave as well. "His Majesty the King has arrived." At that moment, a long drawn-out voice could be heard announcing the arrival of the king. The noise within the palace instantly died out as everyone turned to look in the direction the cry came from. Everyone could see a golden, purple dragon-robed middle-aged man walking into the palace with an intimidating air. Right behind him was a single elder with a crane-styled hairdo. The king was turning 50 years old, but his appearance made him look as if he was 40 instead. He was smiling widely with eyes that flickered with vigor and wisdom. The Qinhuang Kingdom's king had 12 children. 7 of them were princes and the other 5 were princesses. The eldest was already 30 years old and the youngest was only 6. At this moment, those 12 children were walking right behind him. Greet His Majesty and wish him a long life and glory to the Qinhuang Kingdom. The entire palace began to speak out the words, "Long live and 1,000 years." Within the Tianyuan continent, these were the highest words of celebration that generally only the nobility of countries could hear. That was because 1,000 years was the lifespan of a heaven saint master. Saint rulers and saint kings weren't even able to live past 10,000 years and were generally within the thousands. Afterward, everyone began to give the gifts they had prepared. The vast majority of the items were all vastly valuable, some of them were even beyond the scope of what money could be. Apart from this, there was plenty of antique pottery and vases from several people as well as plenty of heavenly resources that were aged well over 1,000 years. After the majority of the men had presented their gifts, Jian Chen came walking forward with a purple and gold box. Striding forward, he presented it to the king with a smile. "There is a Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill within this box. I present this to His Majesty in congratulations on his birthday." Jian Chen spoke succinctly without any flowery words. "A Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill? I've heard only a 7th class Radiant Saint Master would be able to produce such a pill. It is a pill that is fully deserving of being called a true healing Catholicon. Not only can it purify any venom, but it could even rescue a person from the jaws of death. A Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill can be rarely seen within the entire continent. This would make even hermits drool at the mouth to have such a life-saving treasure." Upon hearing the words, "Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill," the entire palace began to burst into commotion and admiration at this item. They all looked at the purple and golden box within Jian Chen's hands. Each one believed that such a high-leveled Radiant Spirit Pill had gone extinct since the only Radiant Saint Masters capable of making one were as rare as a phoenix feather. Furthermore, creating just one of these would require a tremendous amount of energy from them. The Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill had moved even the king. If he wanted to obtain some sort of heavenly resource or any other priceless treasure, it was not at all difficult for him. A Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill was a different matter. That was because items that could save one's life were far too priceless to be obtained. Following a stare from the king, a white-robed elder immediately came forth from the crowd. Taking the box from Jian Chen's hands, he took out the bottle from within and then began to inspect the thumb-sized pill from it. This elder was a Radiant Saint Master that would be able to tell how rich the Radiant Saint force was within the pill. After making sure he wasn't wrong, the elder's face lit up in delight as he carefully put the pill back into the box and cupped his hands to the king. "Your Majesty, this is truly a Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill." The elder's voice held an emotional tone to it since he knew just how rare it was to see such a high-leveled pill. Standing right behind the king, Qin Ji sent an appreciative glance to Jian Chen. Even he knew just how priceless a Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill was. For Jian Chen to unexpectedly gift such a pill to the king, the meaning would be loud and clear, allowing Qin Ji to feel happy. Even the other people standing by the king's side began to change their opinion of Jian Chen by smiling and nodding. A Class 8 Radiant Spirit Pill couldn't be given by just anyone. This action from Jian Chen had inadvertently solidified his status among everyone in the crowd. Hearing the confirmation from the elder, the king immediately began to laugh as he regarded Jian Chen in a new light. "Remarkable brother, it only takes one look to know that you are a giant among the men here. I admit to knowing no noble that would relinquish such a priceless gift, but I am truly grateful. Father, he is called Jian Chen, a friend I have made from the outside. Before Jian Chen could even say anything, Qin Ji spoke out respectfully to his father. As soon as Qin Ji spoke, several other men began to cry out. Jian Chen. He's Jian Chen, it's no wonder I thought he looked familiar. Could he be that very same Jian Chen who became the king of mercenaries at the last gathering of the mercenaries? His strength was on par with a heaven saint master, it's no wonder I felt that there was something to him. I've got it. He's that Jian Chen who became the king of mercenaries. I was there for the event, so no wonder I had thought he was familiar looking. It's because his hair is nearly gone so that I was unable to recognize him. Even his eyelashes are gone. Chapter 394, Attacks that influence even the nobility. Hearing the chatter regarding Jian Chen, the influential officials all had flabbergasted expressions on their faces as they stared at Jian Chen one by one in disbelief. Everyone knew that the king of mercenaries was named Jian Chen, but those who had personally seen what Jian Chen had looked like were a small amount. No one could have imagined that Jian Chen was actually very young, even younger than the third prince. In simple math, Jian Chen spent less time cultivating than the third prince, but he was even stronger than him. This led everyone to believe that Jian Chen was a genius of unsurpassed prowess. The king of the Qinhuang kingdom boomed with laughter as he looked at Jian Chen with surprise. Good. Very good. I did not judge you wrongly then. Jian Chen, you are truly a giant among men if you were able to become the king of mercenaries at such a young age. Your future has no limits, and my son will benefit greatly from being acquainted with you. Xiao Han stood within the crowd of people with a look of utter fury at Jian Chen. Biting his lip, he muttered angrily under his breath, I didn't think you would be that nonsensical king of mercenaries. It doesn't matter who you are, Xiao Han will not let you off easily. Hearing the mutters of Xiao Han, a cyan-robed middle-aged man asked, Xiao Han, could this be the one that humiliated and injured you yesterday? Correct, Uncle Mu Xiaye, you must help me teach him a lesson. Otherwise, this is something I will never be able to swallow. Xiao Han spoke. Mu Xiaye was an apprentice to his grandfather and was close to him. Mu Xiaye's eyebrows creased together as he thought, I'm afraid it won't be easy. I had no idea that he would be the king of mercenaries. Although I do not know of his strength, he surely has to be stronger than the third prince by a good amount. Furthermore, he has earned the favor His Majesty. If I were to act against him, I would earn the ire of His Majesty in return. Uncle Mu Xiaye, he is only so old. Even if the third prince is no match to him, it doesn't mean that Jian Chen may have used some sort of way to scrape out an unexpected success to become the king of mercenaries. You could challenge him in public and then humiliate him. As for His Majesty, I will naturally let my grandfather take care of that. Xiao Han spoke. Nodding his head slightly, Mu Xiaye spoke, fine, I was wanting to test his strength anyways. I'd like to see just how strong the rumors say the king of mercenaries is. After knowing that Jian Chen was the king of mercenaries, the king's attitude toward him was far more friendly. On the contrast, when the other princes had heard that Jian Chen was the friend of the third prince, they had all contorted with annoyance. Only two of the younger princes had been able to keep their cool as if the matter had nothing to do with them. Jian Chen and the king managed to exchange several more words before returning to the crowd. However, at this moment, every single noble and major powers had begun to treat Jian Chen vastly different from before. Charging at him, each one of them tried to get within Jian Chen's good graces. That was because in the past, every single king of the mercenaries had been at the very least a heaven saint master. At the highest, they had been able to make the breakthrough to become a saint ruler. When it came to these people, Jian Chen only politely responded to them without any deeper meaning to his words. Suddenly, a grand voice could be heard reverberating through the halls, causing all of the noise in the hall to stop instantly. Your Majesty, our Qinhuang kingdom was founded by the military since the ancient past and defended our country with our military might. Today is the birthday of His Majesty, but why is there a shortage of martial might? This humble servant's hand itches and wishes to compare notes with the king of mercenaries, Jian Chen. At the same time, I wish to use this show of martial prowess to be the gift to His Majesty. Your Majesty, if you could please allow this. Everyone's head began to turn as they looked at a cyan-robed man kneel to the ground as he spoke respectfully to the king. Hearing this, the king had a faint smile as he introduced Jian Chen to him. Jian Chen, this is the Imperial Army Captain, Mu Zhaye. The king had neither denied nor accepted Mu Zhaye's request and instead gave the right to Jian Chen. In the end, he too wanted to see just how strong Jian Chen was. Laughing, Jian Chen strode forward and cupped his hands. If Captain Mu Zhaye wishes to compare notes with this one and put on a show for the king, then let us make this a great present to the king. Laughing joyously, the king spoke, very well. If this is your answer, then let us all cheer you both on. With that, the king and an elder walked out of the halls with the entire crowd following after them. Within a large open space, everyone gathered around to watch Jian Chen and Mu Zhaye fight and were in an extremely jubilant mood. A fight between the Imperial Army captain and the king of mercenaries would definitely be a glorious spectacle. And in everyone's heart, they had wished to see just who would be the winner of the two. Only a few men had seen the king of mercenaries fight and so they had a profound smile on their faces as they watched. Mu Zhaye held his cyan-colored pike in his hands as he stared at Jian Chen fixedly. Although Jian Chen was quite young, being the king of mercenaries did not give Mu Zhaye the luxury of underestimating him. Jian Chen stood 30 meters away with a smile. Staring at the captain, he spoke, Captain Mu Zhaye, if you would please start it off. Seeing how Jian Chen had not yet taken out his saint weapon to fight, Mu Zhaye's eyebrows creased together with a small glint of fury. In his eyes, seeing Jian Chen barehanded was an insult to him. Casting a cold glare and a snort, his legs stamped across the ground as he flew toward Jian Chen. At the same time, the pike in his hands began to glow with the wind-attributed saint force as he thrust it forward. Jian Chen's face had a slight smile as his right leg stamped on the ground. A thumb-sized stone suddenly shot up before being grabbed by Jian Chen with ease. His hand shook for a moment before the pebble then began to glow with an azure and violet light. The pebble shot straight toward the incoming Mu Zhaye. Ding! A crisp sound could be heard as the thumb-sized stone collided against the tip of Mu Zhaye's pike. Following the inconceivably strong impact, Mu Zhaye's arm and pike began to tremble from the force. Looking greatly shocked, the force of the blow had caused Mu Zhaye to stop for a moment before staggering backwards several steps. Both of the hands that were carrying the pike were shaking violently and a small amount of blood could be seen from the web of his hand. Turning pale with fright, Mu Zhaye turned his head to look at Jian Chen. Despite all of his strength, a pebble thrown by Jian Chen had been able to force him back. This was far too much for Mu Zhaye to accept. Seeing how a single stone thrown by Jian Chen had caused Mu Zhaye's hand to bleed, the spectators had gone into an uproar. Each one looked on in disbelief. This display of strength had been nearly as great on their hearts as it was for Mu Zhaye. Could this be a battle skill of Jian Chen's? Some people began to ask. Even the king sighed in admiration. He looked at Jian Chen in disbelief for a moment before turning to give a look to the elder beside him. A single pebble had been enough for the captain of the Imperial Army to stagger backward. This was more than enough to let the king know that Jian Chen's strength was far stronger than he initially thought. An Earth Saint Master would not be enough to gauge Jian Chen's true strength, so he planned on bringing out a stronger person to do so instead. The elder standing next to the king nodded before walking out. Jian Chen, allow this old man to try. Before giving Jian Chen any option, the elder transformed into a blurry image as he charged toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen's lips curled up with a faint smile as he pointed outward with a finger, causing an azure and violet sword chi to shoot toward the elder. Knowing that Jian Chen was exceedingly strong, he didn't dare underestimate him. Forming a fist, he lashed out against the sword Qi with a rippling amount of fire saint force. The sword Qi was scattered apart by the elder, but there was an eye-catching wound left on top of the elder's hand. Looking at the wound on his hand, the elder's face grew dim. Swiping at the air, the fire element within the world began to congregate around his hand before instantaneously forming a giant sword of fire. At this sight, Jian Chen revealed a sneer before he raised his right hand as well. The fire elements in the world began to gather in his right hand at a faster rate than the elder and formed a giant sword of fire. No matter if it was color or by temperature, Jian Chen's sword seemed much stronger than the elder's. He has control of the energy of the world. How surprising is that? This is the magical power of controlling the energy of the world. Could he have reached the Heaven Saint Master realm? Jian Chen's act of controlling the energy of the world had caused everyone to turn pale with fright. At this moment, everyone had truly believed that Jian Chen was many times stronger than Mu Xiaoye. Even the lords and leaders had their eyes wide open as they look at Jian Chen in silent disbelief. A Heaven Saint Master wasn't a new sight to them. However, a Heaven Saint Master this young was something they had never heard of before. How is this possible? Jian Chen has made the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master? Even Qin Ji had a look of surprise as he muttered to himself. The king of the Qinhuang kingdom let out a breath of air as he slowly calmed his nerves. At this moment, he could feel his heart beating rapidly at this sight. A 20-something-year-old Heaven Saint Master would surely ripple across the Tianyuan continent if news were to get out. Is he truly as young as he looks? The Qinhuang kingdom's king spoke with some doubt. Chapter 395, Midair's Showdown. When the elders saw Jian Chen form a sword seemingly out of mid-air, his face instantly blanched in shock. But without pause, he condensed his own fire-red great sword and went at Jian Chen to try and slash him. When the elder swung out, so did Jian Chen. Waving his right hand, the sword instantly shot toward the elder. Bang! When both fire-red swords collided against each other, the two swords suddenly exploded with energy, causing an explosive bang to be heard as the entire sky washed over with flames. All around the two combatants, balls of fire could be seen flying everywhere at high speeds and high temperature. Run! Get back! Protect His Majesty! The surrounding spectators instantly spread out as they flew backward, while at the same time, saint force of every color appeared to form a protective armor for themselves and anyone of major importance. Seeing the sudden spread of the fire, even the king of the Qinhuang kingdom was surprised. But a white figure suddenly shot towards him as a cyan-colored man brought both the king and himself into the air by using his wind-attributed saint force. With a grab of the king's shoulder, the two of them flew away from the fire. Movement could be seen coming from everywhere as an Earth Saint Master began to spread out his saint force all over the palace. Several armored soldiers immediately flew forward in a hurried manner to form a protective line. At the same time, 4 elders and 2 middle-aged men strode forward from the crowd and circled around the ring of fire. Raising their hands, each one used a fierce blast of wind to curb and control the fire. The sea of flames had already concealed both Jian Chen and the elder he was fighting, but even within the flames, their movements were not hindered in the slightest. Just as the flames sent flying back at them from the 6 men earlier, it was suddenly stopped by an invisible force just 1 meter away. Allow this old man to fight you from above. The elder spoke as he flew 500 meters up into the air, transforming into a speck the size of an ant. The faint element of fire could be seen enveloping his entire body. Not willing to admit defeat, Jian Chen began to use the wind element in the world and gathered it around his body using his mind. Flying straight into the air, he quickly got within 100 meters of the floating elder. What? You can control the wind element as well. The elder spoke thunderstruck as he looked at the wind swivel around Jian Chen's body. The cyan-colored light surrounding Jian Chen's body had not gone unnoticed by the audience below. Each one of them cried out in shock, but not as loud as the several hidden Heaven Saint Masters within the crowd. It was almost as if they had seen a monster as their faces contorted in shock. How is this possible? He was clearly a fire-attributed Saint Force cultivator, just how is he using the wind attribute? Could he be a wind-attributed Saint Force user instead of a fire-attributed Saint Force user? Impossible, there has never been anyone being able to use two different elements. He must be using some sort of strange method. Jian Chen, could it be that you are able to control both the fire and wind element? The elder questioned in astonishment. Smiling, Jian Chen replied honestly, correct, I am truly able to control both the fire and wind element. No, that's not possible. Just how could you control two elements? There has never been a single person who could do the same before on the continent. The man cried out. There has never been anything that cannot be done. There are still many profound mysteries to the world, all that we know are merely the ones we have stepped into and understood. Although seeing Jian Chen take control of two elements in the world was extremely surprising, the elder calmed himself down quickly. You speak correctly, there are still many things unknown to us in the world. It seems this old man has forgotten himself. Pausing his breath, the fire sword appeared in his hand once more. Today, I shall find out for myself just how strong a wielder of two elements is. Smiling, Jian Chen raised both of his hands. Immediately, all of the pebbles within the nearby pond began to fly up as if a strange force was pulling it. Breaking through the water, the pebbles all floated around Jian Chen's body ominously. What is the meaning of this? How did the stones suddenly fly up into the air? What power is this? How is he doing it? At this even stranger sight, everyone could only gasp in surprise. Behind two Heaven Saint Master guards, the Qinhuang Kingdom King tilted his head to the sky. This Jian Chen is truly beyond what I imagined. At such a young age, he has reached the Heaven Saint Master realm. A genius like this comes only once every 1,000 years. One of the Heaven Saint Masters looked surprised at that. Why stop at 1,000 years? A talent like his comes every 10,000 years. If his skill grows without any complication, he will be a saint ruler at the very least. Becoming a saint king would be of no problem to him. Hearing this, the king paused in surprise. Even the princes standing behind the king were frightened at this. Struggling to maintain their composure, they looked at Qin Ji with a mixture of admiration and jealousy. As for Qin Ji, he had personally seen Jian Chen's amazing prowess with his own eyes before. His mind had already thought of Jian Chen to be stronger than what his own words could say. By now, the Heaven Saint Master had thrown away all notions of belittling Jian Chen. Mustering all of his strength, the flames on his sword had begun to evaporate even the air around it. Jian Chen floated in midair as steady as a mountain as the wind blew past his figure ferociously. Both of his hands had already formed a fist right in front of his chest as the pebbles floating around him began to meld into the form of a sword that radiated with azure and violet sword chi. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.